This is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Oh, hey listeners, Star Wars fans, AMCP fans, how's that for, I don't know. I've been gone to Gen Con all week, alright? So just, just got back, recorded this early in the morning for you guys. That's how dedicated we are.
Sure.
So, here we go.
Don't tell them that. They'll think we're less adequate and more good.
It's okay. They'll know better. The way I laughed immediately when he said that, I'm sure we'll give it to most of them. Give our listeners some credit.
That I'm less than truthful. Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, I wasn't going to let Gen Con stop the production of this podcast, dang it. No rain, nor shine, nor fog of night, or whatever they say. I don't know.
So the deceptive one there is Kyler.
Yep.
I'm Chris.
I'm Kyler. Hey.
And I'm Ross.
Promise I've done this podcast before.
Like he said, he's tired from traveling.
Are we getting worse at this?
You know what? Funny story. I was just re-listening to our last Improbabilities episode. We asked the exact same question then. So apparently not. We're roughly even.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like we maintain a good balance in the Force on this podcast. And for every episode that I'm like, wow, that was really good. I'm proud of that. Then we just blunder right into the next one. And
yep.
I'm like, there it is. Return to
good
mediocrity.
Times.
There we go.
So, anyway, Ross, I believe you have some Star Wars news for us.
I have some newsy news.
About not Star Wars things?
I like how this intro has evolved over time. First it was just the news, then it was the newsy news. Then you guys started complaining about the newsy news.
Ross is like a petulant child. The quickest way to get him to do something is to tell him not to do it.
Because that doesn't describe us at all.
Yes, so we do have several interesting items from this week. The first is...
Or from several weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Hey, wow.
Several weeks ago. Because we're practically live, everyone.
Yep.
Straight from our lips to your ears. Right? Is that okay? Yeah, that is
sure.
how that
Yeah,
works.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You heard it here. Ross wants to put his lips on your ears. Straight away.
And cut. So, to start us off, here is more good news for all of you Star Wars comic fans out there. They have announced a Rise of Kylo Ren comic miniseries. I think this sounds like it's going to cover a lot of my fan fiction from a couple episodes ago.
Could be.
So, I am looking forward to that.
Yep.
The cover had this nice...
I did like that cover image.
drawing image... Whatever, I was going to call it a painting, but it's not.
He's an artist, folks.
I know. Yeah.
This is a visual arts professional.
But it had this great rendering of Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren standing around him, and
it looks really cool.
Awesome stuff. So
their weapons look interesting too. I'm interested to see.
Curious why nobody has a lightsaber but Kylo.
Yeah. Well, one of them has like a vibro blade, scythe, or something like that.
I want to say I read somewhere that they're all supposed to be vibro weapons.
Yeah. And that would make sense. That's about as top tier melee as you can get before you get to lightsaber.
Yeah.
So
So cool.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome to read, I'm sure. Next, the Millennium Falcon ride at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge has recently celebrated its 1 millionth rider.
Wow.
So that's a lot of people to put through. And and I don't know what to believe about the whole population
I know,
of the
right?
park.
That it was like empty or whatever. Well, but like I've seen like pictures and videos that people have taken, and the park is definitely not as crowded as it normally is.
The thing I read was basically just breaking down like it's like, yes, there is a lull going on at the park right now. That does not mean that the park is doing poorly. The park is still exceeding expectation as far as profits goes and everything. It's just that the scheduling system that they implemented
ended up driving a lot of people away.
Yeah, it resulted in some gaps where people just kind of assumed like, oh, well, I've already scheduled a spot, so I'm not going to go now.
Yeah.
And so they ended up with this lull. But the scheduling for the future is packed
back to
full,
normal.
so it'll be fine.
So.
Easier to deal with a lull like this when you know that you've already got all the attendance scheduled out for months after that.
And also, it may help that it says 1 millionth rider or visitor or whatever on the ride.
Yeah.
So you might have a family of 4, and that's essentially like one group, but it's 4 people that count towards this 1 million.
Yeah.
So. But even so, even if we take that ridiculous number that I just made up and use it as an average, that's still 250,000 people between May and now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
month and a half.
That's a lot. That's so many people.
I guess almost 2 months actually at this point now,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But and also, how much of that do you think is repeat writers?
Oh,
Well,
plenty.
again, if the park is not busy and I can get off the Millennium Falcon ride and just get right back in line and have a 10-minute wait, you bet I'm doing that
Yeah.
all day
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
I doubt they're equipped to count individual riders.
Yeah.
And without it's probably just here's the number of people that have gone through there, or the number of rides that it's gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then finally,
Especially because the ride has different spots for people
Yeah.
to sit, so you get a somewhat different experience depending on where you're at in the cockpit. And I'm
Yeah,
sure a
'cause
lot
it's,
of people
I think,
are.
4 people.
Yeah,
6
it's for
people.
4.
Is it 6
for
people?
6 people.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. See, so for me, I would want to ride it at least 6 times.
I'd
you know what I
want
mean?
at least once as the pilot is my main
Oh, yeah.
concern. But
Well,
yeah.
I want to do a gunner. Like, that sounds super fun to me.
There are 2 pilot spots, 2 gunner spots, and I'm guessing 2 engineering spots.
Oh.
Um,
Okay, well then
So,
3 times.
yeah.
You know, I would want to do it
Every
for
unique
every
experience,
for every slot, every crew slot. You know,
Yeah.
to have.
Well, and I was a little bit disappointed in the way they're doing the piloting, because so it's your pilot and co-pilot, so the Han and Chewie seats, but one pilot does the left and right, the other pilot does the up and down.
Oh,
So it's
that's
just
weird.
like,
Wow.
I mean, is there another version for us
That's
gamers
weird.
somewhere? You know,
That is
Yeah.
weird. I don't know. There's plenty of games like that. That sounds like the Octodad version of Star
Yeah,
Wars.
that
Like,
sounds
that's
like a
horrible.
bad idea. I
Could
would,
be
you would think
hilarious.
that like the pilot would just handle the pitch and the yaw, and then the co-pilot would have other buttons that they can push. You know.
and see, I would think things like shields, like someone that
Yeah,
that
like
could
manage-
push
yeah,
shields
system
in a
management.
Well,
certain
I would
direction, or-
I would plan it out where it's like, okay, you're gonna have. Wasn't me this time.
Lightsaber's falling. I didn't even touch it.
Yeah, you did a minute ago. It just took
It's
this
my
long.
phone there that my phone's up against them
Dang
and
it.
that bumped him.
Stupid.
We need to find
Here,
a
give me
better
my
spot for
phone.
them.
We'll get that out of the way. But yeah, I would have story points in there where for some reason the pilot's controls fritz and you have to wait for engineering to fix them, and the co-pilot takes over
Yeah.
piloting, and you can swap back and forth that
That'd
way
be
or
cool.
something.
It would be interesting. It leaves the one pilot without something to do.
No,
though,
you
for a
you,
little bit,
you
but-
still give them other things to do. It's like, all right, my controls are on fritz. I'll take over handling shields or this, that, or the other while you pilot, and boom,
Yeah.
done.
True. That would be interesting. Okay. So our final bit of news that I'm most excited about has to do with a video interview that someone interviewed a man named Kevin Smith, who I believe is one of the actors from Jay and Silent Bob. I never saw the movies. I know I've seen him around before, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who he
I
is.
don't.
Where he talked about how he had a conversation with J.J. Abrams about being in the movie or getting invited to be in the movie if he did he beat cancer or something, or like there was something. He was in the hospital. He had some sort of health problem, and then was somehow conversing with J.J. Abrams and is like, JJ's like, yeah, you got to beat this thing so that you can come be in Star Wars, and he did. And then so he ends up writing. JJ's like, hey, remember what you said? And JJ brought him out, and he was talking about how he was going through the set, and people are like, yeah, oh yeah, you ought to go over here and see this portion of the set that we're building. And he runs into JJ, and JJ's like, no, you don't want to do that. And he goes, why? He was like, because that's the ending scene, and it's mind blowing, you know. And he said that just respecting the. Oh, and JJ also told him that this is something that you want to see in the theater. You don't want to have spoiled, and so that this Kevin, trying to respect the story and respecting all that, decided not to go look at the final set. So
I think I would have.
I know I would have. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I could resist.
Yep. But so I don't know. It's just there's lots of people saying lots of really great things about this. I'm trying to keep my expectations normal, but
I'm still pretty moderate on my expectations.
Yeah.
I'm good. I've been well trained by Hollywood to just go meh about most things. Every now and then I'll
I'm
be
keeping my
excited against my
expectations
will.
low for 9. That way, hopefully, I'll be happy with it.
And I feel
My
like
goal generally.
in putting together the pieces of footage that we've had released, and then that story, I wonder if that means that's not the Death Star final battle, right? The lightsaber duel that we've been seeing between Rey and Kylo on some wreckage of presumably the Death Star in water.
You mean the snowy one?
No. Haven't you seen the footage of Daisy Ridley and
If it wasn't
I
in
forget
that
his name.
initial trailer, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh.
I avoid looking at anything. So.
okay. Well, Seeing
So
as I've
there it
already
is.
said it, yeah.
That's
no.
cool. I mean, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some production images of Daisy Ridley standing opposite. Why can't I remember all of a sudden?
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver. And they're on imperial-looking construction, and water is splashing around
Speaking
them.
of Adam Driver, I saw a dang funny thing on Facebook. They were like, Adam Driver looks like somebody tried to draw Keanu Reeves from memory. And I was like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Anyway, exciting times.
Did you like my "You're Breathtaking"
Yeah, I did.
thing?
That was nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I'm glad you got it. I'm
Yeah.
glad you understood that. Anyway,
If you're not in the Facebook group, you're missing out.
that's right. Anyway, so I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. That's the
Cool. All right, audience. So, if you have been paying attention to what we're saying, or have just, looked at the title and or description of this episode, then you know
Or
we
if
are
you're
doing...
frantically clicking around on like iTunes or something, you've somehow ended up at this moment of
Yes.
the podcast.
Hey, welcome. I don't know why you sat through all of that, but...
No, they're just trying to get away, and so they're like skipping back and forth to different parts. Now they're here.
Right, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what happens to me.
It's not it's a little improbable.
Oh! See that
So,
segue?
yeah. We're doing an improbabilities episode again. Last time we did one of these, we thought, well, let's sit down and talk about all the improbable things that happen in the Star Wars movies. We made it through the original trilogy, and then realized, well,
There's a lot of
apparently
material here.
we need to do more of these episodes. So today we are talking about improbabilities of the prequel trilogy. So, some definitions. We mentioned most of this last time, but if you don't remember or haven't listened to that one, this is not about bad storytelling. Like, this is not us saying, oh, this makes this bad, or this, the original trilogy was packed with all sorts of things that were improbable.
And if you don't believe us, go listen to that other
Yep,
episode.
you're welcome to go listen to that episode. And we still love them. Like, the improbability drives storytelling to a very large degree. Go back and listen to that last one first to hear us talk about more of that. But this does not make things bad. Now, it is the prequels, so there might be some crossover there. But the point of this is not ragging on, like, look how poorly
I'd say it's
these are
probable
made.
that there's
Oh, yes,
some-
yes. But yeah, even in the most excellent of stories, there are improbabilities, and it's not unfun to point them out. To point out these inconsistencies. Like, this is very large on the internet these days, right? You've got cinema sins, you've got how it should have ended, and all sorts of things. We like to highlight things that don't make sense in movies, but it's not... Like, for me, it's this big thing of, like, you should not confuse that with movie criticism. Like, that is not, like, constructive discussion of how a movie works or doesn't. That's just nitpicking at things for fun, which is cool. Obviously we're doing it, so we don't have a problem with it. But...
By the way, if you want to go listen to that previous episode where we talked about improbabilities in the original trilogy, it is episode 42, Never Tell Me the Odds.
There we go. All right, so now then, establishing some definitions on improbabilities. We are not talking about scientific impossibilities here, like the planet core of Naboo, or a planet-covering city on Coruscant. While those things, as far as we know with our current scientific knowledge, are not possible, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the things that make you go, well, that's convenient, or really, that's how that played out? Like, that seems unlikely. We're not talking about bad decision making, which often would be improbable, the sort of thing where it's like, really, a person in that position made that bad a decision. They decided to invade the planet on the wrong side, or they wanted to prove to the Senate that Naboo had just been invaded and didn't think to bring their two supposedly impartial Jedi witnesses to establish that this actually happened.
I like to remind myself that people like Florida Man exist when it
There's
comes
that
to making
too.
bad decisions. So
But we also know
people
that
do.
ostensibly these are competent people.
Sure,
and
but
they're
competent
just-
people still make mistakes. And so
Sure,
that's one
but-
of the lesser sins for me.
But really, like, the thing with the Senate there is, like,
Yeah,
the Senate's like,
yeah.
well, we can't even prove this happens. We have to stop this and send a committee to investigate. And no one's like, well, we got a couple Jedi that were there. Like, ostensibly, these people are impartial peacekeepers
Yeah.
and should be reliable witnesses. Why are they not here in the first place? Like, first-hand witnesses that were critically involved
or why
in all
can't
of this?
we communicate with them?
Yeah, like, and again, that is improbable in its own way, but generally speaking, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, that's just bad decision making and or writing, but it's not something that, well, what are the odds of that happening? And we're also not talking about mistakes or continuity errors. We're not talking about things that just don't make sense, like those weird gates that close off in the, like, plasma place
Yeah.
in during the final duel in episode 1. Don't know what those things are, why they apparently close at some funky random rate that allows Qui-Gon and Darth Maul to fight their whole way down the corridor, but then they shut and Obi-Wan can't sprint down that corridor in the time before they close again. Like, sure, whatever. That's not what we're talking about here. Like I said, this is mainly the things that you go, what are the odds of that? Like, that they're not good. Now, there may be some crossover with some of those categories. It was the trickiest thing when I sat down to make our list of prequel improbabilities. There's a lot of blurry lines. Like, I've got one or two in particular where I'm like, well, that is bad decision making, but it's particularly unlikely bad decision making. Like, this is a whole nother level of bad decision making where I'm like, this qualifies. I'm putting this on here. So it gets very blurry. Another of the problems that I had when preparing for this was just that there's some that it's just like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna put a couple words here, and that just describes this whole thing because it got really broad here.
Also, remember that all parameters and boundaries on this podcast are completely arbitrary anyway.
That's
so
right.
Deal with
points don't matter.
Yep.
But yeah, I am tired at this point. I was telling Ross before we started that it's just like you know how in D&D a paladin can detect evil, and if they detect an particularly evil aura, something that's just so powerfully evil,
make them sick or
it
something.
it can stun them. At least in 3.5 was the setting. Trying to apply critical thought to the Star Wars prequels for an extended duration of time is like that. Like, I am so exhausted, I can't even think. Like, I basically got towards the end of episode 3 and was just like, screw it, that's good enough. I haven't even reached the end of the show, but I can't do this anymore. It was hard. So, with that in mind, let's start with episode 1, some improbable things. The other thing I wanted to mention, not all improbabilities are created equal.
Sure.
Some of these are minor, where it's like, oh yeah, what are the odds of that? Not great, but not, it's not that hard to buy, but others are more significant. So this first one isn't that bad, but I thought it worth mentioning. 2 flesh beings are able to remain hidden on transports designed primarily / exclusively for droids.
Yeah.
Sneaking through the droid control ship there at the beginning, that's okay, I guess. Maybe I can buy that. But escaping it on crafts that are exclusively populated by droids, and somehow nobody manages
That's
to
true,
detect
because
this.
it seems like the Nemoidians are basically all in, like, the bridge, the big ball in the middle. Mm-hmm. So why couldn't you just be like, cool, can we get a ping of the ship, guys?
Yeah.
Hey, we got 2 meat sacks that are not on the bridge. Everybody accounted for? Okay.
Even though we know they could do that, but you could even go so far as to just vent the atmosphere throughout the rest of the ship.
Sure. Oh.
Well, see, and there was that too, where I was just like, how well are these ships even going to be designed for living beings to travel in? Like, that, I don't know. Anyway, that's one of the smaller ones. Bigger one is, okay, we just landed in this random forest in this random spot on the planet, and we just happened to run into a sentient, arguably moderately intelligent being. Literally run into Jar Jar. It's like, the odds of running into Jar Jar in that situation are pretty slim.
I would say more than 3,720.
Yes. Let alone the odds of there also being a complete entire city hidden within walking / swimming distance of that point.
And not just a city, but we're talking a really impressive metropolis.
Yeah.
Underwater.
Entirely hidden, close enough for us to reach on foot / swimming along. And I mean, they're Jedi, that's cool, but I don't know about you guys. My swimming distance is not as good as my walking distance. That's for sure. Especially underwater, having to full body swim the way they are.
Primarily downward when you're buoyant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotta be using the Force on that one. But it's frankly,
there's a lot of things in here where it's like, the Force can only cover so many sins.
Yeah.
It's already covering multitudes here.
It's really crazy, though, because you think about Otuganga, that's the name of the city.
Yep.
That pond is not overly large.
Doesn't seem to be, does it?
It doesn't seem to be, and yet it's deep enough and then just opens up underwater.
See, and reading about this, I discovered that apparently, because I was researching, I was curious about the planet core. I was like, did they ever establish whether or not they're actually going through the core of the planet, which is utterly ridiculous, or if it's just some more shallow cave system, which is still ridiculous, but not as utterly ridiculous? And yes, they did. Apparently, for some bizarre reason, Naboo has a core of solid plasma. Don't know how that's happening.
Solid plasma.
Well, not solid necessarily, but like contained
core
plasma.
of
Yeah,
plasma.
a plasma core, which, yeah, that's funky for a planet. And then these cave systems extend down far deeper than you would expect them to be able to in the core, because it's plasma and it's not a Earth-like system. It's weird. And I was like, sure, okay, whatever. So they're not literally going through the core of the planet, but they are going through a bunch of... And this is current canon. That was from apparently a Star Wars geography book from 2016.
See, and I had thought about this.
But so apparently the surface of Naboo is just riddled with these watery cave systems all around. So I'm guessing maybe that's why there's this pond there. Yeah,
I had thought about this ever since I saw that, and I'm like, that doesn't really make sense that you're going through because planets typically have, or at least the one that supports life that we know of, has, liquid metal in there, and it's, a little roasty.
A little bit, tiny bit.
And so I thought, well, how could, if you don't have a solid core, A, you're not going to have a magnetic field, which is problematic in and of itself.
It's going to throw all sorts of wrenches in there.
But, I thought, well, and part of, the reason the Earth's gravity works the way it does is because our core is of metal, so it's denser, it's pulling more on us than if it were gas or something in the middle, right? So I thought, well, Naboo could achieve, in theory, the same gravity of Earth with a hollow core by just being a much larger planet. So you'd end up with the same amount of mass pulling...
You'd still have the problem of how it remains hollow without everything collapsing into that center portion. Spot.
Well, yeah.
Well, but plasma doesn't fix that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all.
I just sat here and was like, okay, I'm fairly versed in science things. I'm not exactly sure the definition of plasma, so let's look it up real quick. There's a couple different ones.
This is something we definitely need to talk with Kyle about when we have him on.
The one that fits here, because the other one is blood plasma and things like that, but the one that fits here, the closest that I can do, because the other one is like a display for a television, is a collection of charged particles containing about equal numbers of positive ions and electrons and exhibiting some properties of gas, but differing from gas in being a good conductor of electricity and in being affected by a magnetic field. Yeah. So, it's you're looking at basically an electric cloud.
Yep. Apparently that's place where they have their duel at the end of the movie. They are literally pumping plasma up from the core.
Oh.
That is what that station is supposed to be. So, fun fact.
Wow.
I am going to divert us back, though, because we're diverting into scientific impossibilities here, and that's explicitly not what this is about.
No, I just wanted to share that because, that's something that, as a 15, 16-year-old, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Okay, how could this work, though?
Yeah.
But even then, it solves one problem, but makes 10 others, in the process.
Yes. So next improbability is the bigger fish improbability.
Yes!
Times 2.
Yes!
Which this was the one I was thinking of
earlier.
Yeah.
It's okay, the fact that there are, man-eating critters down there, okay, cool,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely, sure, why not?
We're in water, so it's somewhat more plausible to have these megalithic creatures.
Yeah, especially where a planet apparently has much more water on it than Earth does. Yeah, okay, fine.
Somewhat more plausible than it would be otherwise. But
and I would even be okay with one monster.
Would not be quite as pushing it.
Yeah. But the fact that you swim by the little crabby-looking one, and it decides to eat you, it's okay, all right, it's...
Yep.
Okay, everybody some people get hit by lightning.
It's a familiar
every now
cliche,
and again,
but
fine.
Okay, yeah.
But then, when it gets eaten by the bigger fish, and it's okay, I understand that this is your natural prey, so you might be looking for it, but the fact that you show up right then...
Yep.
Okay.
And then we run into another one.
Wipe our brow.
That also
and
gets
it's in
eaten.
the cave, and it's, hey, I'm also going to eat you. And the second we exit the cave, there happens to be a natural predator of this
the
thing
same
right
natural
there.
predator,
It's the
actually.
same.
Yeah. But,
Yeah,
so
it's
maybe
just-
it's still around. But even so, just the fact that any of that happens at all, that we're conveniently saved from this gigantic predator by a bigger predator being close at hand, and apparently that predator being unaware of it and not being cautious that it was here, and then have the exact same thing happen a moment later, well, that's pretty improbable.
It is, and it makes me wonder, is that the same creature? Because a creature of that size is going to require quite a bit of food to sustain it.
Sure.
And generally, bigger creatures like that don't hang out together because it's just, it's too much a strain on the food resources. So it's man, that leaves us with one of two possibilities, Chris. Either it's the same one, or it's mating season, and that's why they're together.
I'm going with it's the same one.
I'm pretty sure it's the same one because the bongo turns around and heads back out that
Yeah,
cave
they get down in a hole. Bongo shuts down. We get our next improbability, which is the bongo can conveniently be fixed from the cockpit after it breaks down.
by hot wiring it.
By hot wiring it.
That's amazing.
And then the lights come back on, and it's like, oh, wow, where did that thing come from? Literally right in front of us. Let's turn around and get out of this hole.
Because I love in my car when, like, the carburetor breaks down and I can pop open the dash and hotwire a few wires and the carburetor's fixed.
Yep.
Love it when that happens.
Yep.
Super helpful.
Do that all the time. You don't even have to get out of the car. It's really nice, especially on rainy days. All right, so then they slip into an occupied city without being noticed. And by slip in, I mean literally pop up in the middle of a prominent waterway.
Yeah. It'd be like a submarine showing up in the Grand Canal of Venice. And no one notices.
Nobody notices because they're too busy being occupied / doing the occupying. Though I would think that would make you a little more aware
alert.
than normal.
Yeah, for reals.
Yeah.
Like, barring an active, like, shooting massacre, like, right down the street that is occupying you, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you would be less observant somehow.
Yep. But we manage it even with Jar Jar in tow.
Which is that right there.
Which is one of those broad
20.
things that it's like, not only are we doing all of these things throughout this whole movie, but we're doing all of them with Jar Jar in tow. Like, let's just acknowledge that ups the unlikelihood of literally everything that happens.
To put it in D&D terms, it takes your DC from like a 15 to about a 25 or a 30.
Yes. Especially when you're sneaking quietly through an occupied city.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Man. What makes me sad is that, I'm just going to throw this news in here anyway. So, Fantasy Flight Games, who makes my beloved games of Legion and Armada, announced yesterday, day before yesterday, something like that, 2 new expansions for Empire and Rebels. Operative Luke and Operative Vader. So you get different sculpts of Vader and Luke and different cards, and they can fill a different slot in your army, which frees up some fun combinations, especially for the Rebels. Now you can take the entire A-team of Han and Leia and Chewie and Luke, which you couldn't do before. It makes me sad because they're coming out with the Clone Wars with it, which I'm super excited for, but that means almost certain we're going to see Jar Jar Binks as like an operative or something.
At some point, yes.
And because of my unavoidable compulsion for completionism, I'm going to fork out money for a Jar Jar Binks. So my only hope is that we pray to the Force and all of the Star Wars gods that they don't make a Jar Jar.
You know, it's going to happen. Honestly, I've never minded Jar Jar that badly. I know he's horrible in so many ways. I can acknowledge that. He does not grate upon me how he does on most people. I just kind of look at him.
That is a gift
yeah,
from
it
God,
really is.
Chris.
It is really nice. It's like having a really horrible coworker that's so horrible that you're not bothered by them. You just kind of watch them bemused because you're like, how could anyone be like you are? How did this happen? I'm not even mad. I'm just curious.
See, but in that way, it's like, I don't know, you're just kind of are the way you are, maybe. You know, that coworker like just is the way that they are. Mm-hmm. But with Jar Jar, it's like someone set out intentionally to make you that way.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Thanks, George.
It's shocking. It's staggering.
All right. So, not only did we slip into the occupied city without being noticed, at the same time, the Queen was conveniently being moved through the city under a very small guard.
Yeah. Okay, so
I counted 6 droids.
Yeah.
There are literally more soldiers in the group that they are moving than there are guards upon.
I have often wondered that why they didn't just overpower the guards. It's like a couple of you might die, but isn't that like literally your job, bodyguards of the Queen? And to be clear here, like the fact that the Queen is being moved is not improbable.
No,
like, okay,
but the fact that she's being moved at that time under
exactly.
that low of a
and
guard.
that's what I wanted to say is like Padme being moved, that's fine. You've captured the political leader of your enemies. You got to move him to safety. Totally, like that's the
and they're
legit
basically
strategy.
moving her to a concentration camp.
Yeah, and that's totally fine, legit, good strategy for your conquering villains. Fine, but yeah, the fact that it happens right when, like literally, right when they pop out of the water, they hop out of the little river that they're in.
I mean, we don't know how long exactly they take there, but it can't be too long.
Yeah, it's a couple of minutes at most.
Yep.
And that's what's improbable about it.
Yes. All right. So they get her. They convince her that she needs to leave Naboo, and they go to the hangar, and all the pilots are conveniently being kept in the hangar for some reason. Not just a pilot to fly the ship they're taking, but also all the pilots they will need at the end to take all those ships. Like, apparently every pilot in the Royal Air Force is just sitting in the hangar under guard for no reason.
Yeah.
I don't, just so that we don't have to go find anyone, or so that we'll have pilots later.
I'm sure the original thought was, for some reason, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan entered the city just after it's been secured, so maybe they haven't had time to move people around. But the thing is that that's kind of going to be...
They putter around for a while, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be item number one is, well, let's get everyone to a holding facility.
Well, and especially it's like, okay, here's a group of people that are trained combat pilots. Let's keep them in the room with all of the fighters.
With all of the equipment that they are specifically trained to use.
Yeah, like, why?
Well, and what's even crazier about that is, so the occupation happens, right? And pilots are locked down in the hangar. They start to move the Queen. I buy the pilots in the hangar at that point in them. I totally get it, right? Because again, the occupation just started. We haven't had time to set up our barbed wire fences and get people in there yet. So just hold them down, and wherever the room they're at, we're going to move people later. That's fine. Then we go to Tatooine for several days at minimum. At minimum 3 days, probably more. Then we come back to Naboo, spend probably a day, at minimum 1 day, minimum, convincing the Gungans, traveling to and convincing the Gungans to organize said army, then get that army to the field and fight a battle. And the pilots are still in the hangar.
No, they got pilots with them at the beginning. They took them on the Queen's ship.
Yeah, they got everyone on board and took off.
I checked because I thought the same thing.
Because I thought there were pilots there at the end of the movie that were like...
that's not how... I did have a moment where I was like, wait, they weren't that ridiculous, were they? So I looked it up and watched some clips, and I was like, oh, no, okay, so they're all just sitting there. They save them. We never see them again until they're needed at the end. I really do just feel like this was a thing of, like, they got to the end and we're filming it, and we're like, wait, George, where did these pilots come from? I was like, oh... Well, let's just stick them into the scene earlier, and then we'll know they're there, because that's an important thing to establish. Right. All right.
That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah. That's good. So then, this lone, unarmed ship manages to run the barricade on its own. No other ships, flying escorts, shielding, any of this. It just runs the barricade all on its own.
That is also shocking in and of itself, but then the fact that these massive carriers whose primary weapons are the fighters that they carry in them don't launch a single one to be like, oh, stop please.
But Chris, the armor on that ship was so special it was worthy of a warrior later.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true.
Why they survived the direct turbo laser, or the glancing turbo laser hit. That's which makes Poe's blow to the face where it shatters her armor quite impressive if he can do roughly equal damage to a turbo laser blast.
She did train him herself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And not just that, they get through there and nobody pursues them either. Like, it was like, oh, they're through the barricade. Well, that's tough luck.
Shoot.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't anyone important. Sir, literally anything with chrome on it indicates that it is important on this planet. Pretty sure that means they're important. So then the ship gets damaged. They send all the R2 droids out there, and every single droid but R2 gets shot right off. And this isn't like they lose their footing and fall off. They literally get shot, picked off. And it's not so much that R2 survives that bothers me, as it is that every single droid that goes out there gets shot off, and he survives. That is a little more improbable than...
Was he alone on that one side?
No, they had all four.
You had like 4 or 5
hit,
droids surrounding that open
and
spot.
4 droids go out, and 3 of them get blown away.
Well, because I feel like wasn't one standing like next to R2? That's what I was wondering.
You had 2 across and 1... So you had 2 across facing R2, and then 1 to his left or to the back. Yeah, one of them
in the rear.
On the side, but he's the only one on that particular side.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be even more improbable if one standing next to him got shot at. Yes.
Well, they got knocked down when R2 bent down to like pick up a wrench or something, you know. Turbo laser clips the head of the other one.
And when R2 stands up, he looks the wrong way.
What?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
I wouldn't put it past the prequels.
Yeah.
Okay. So I considered grousing about Tatooine being close enough that apparently even with a leaky hyperdrive, whatever that means, we can still make it there. Whatever, I don't know anything about this.
A leaky hyperdrive, we know there's hyperfuel, so the fact that
sure,
your
something's going
hyperfuel
on.
container has a hole in it.
I'll give that a pass. Like, we can still
Yeah.
do some light speed, I guess. Sure, apparently we're way closer to the Outer Rim than we would have thought. Okay, whatever. Don't care. I'll buy it.
Well, Naboo is in the Outer Rim.
Yep, apparently.
It is.
But we land on Tatooine. And we go, okay, at this point we need a whole new hyperdrive and everything. So we go out to town.
Drive through a rod.
These Nubian hyperdrives are apparently very rare on Tatooine, but the first trader they talk to is the one person who has any.
Were they rare?
According to Watto.
Watto, he says that. He's like, oh, Nubian, that's rare.
He says
like, that's...
He says
you won't
Nubian.
find them from anyone else, is what he
Yeah.
says. So apparently they are rare if only one trader has them.
Well, because it sounds like Watto more just has the corner on the market, because he goes, oh, Nubian, we have lots of that. That's
Yeah,
his line
maybe.
earlier.
But again, so that they just happen that he's the only trader that has them because he has cornered the market, sure, which means they're relatively rare, and they just happen to go to his place first. Very first one they pick is the only person that has it.
Yeah.
It's one of
Either
those
that or he
things-
lied and Qui-Gon just took him at his word.
Yeah, Yeah, that I think is probably the most probable.
I don't think
The
that's very
second
probable.
most probable, I think, is that, we hand wave and we say, oh, the Force was guiding him, and that's why he...
which would be
Yeah.
fine, except that is the primary excuse for so many
Yeah.
things here.
Yeah.
In the episode 1 game way back in the day, you actually do wander around the city looking around it. Everyone says Watto's the only one large enough. He was supposed to be like the largest junk trader in Mos Espa or wherever they were. But
Yeah, it's
Mos
Mos
Espa.
Espa.
yeah.
But there are also apparently 2 more cities of decent size within viewing distance, according to when Darth Maul lands later and sends off 3 probe droids.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and also
Sith
not
Lord.
only is this the only person who has any of these, but he also happens to be of the one race we've ever heard of that is supposedly immune to Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, that was because that was the first time
No,
we
the
ever saw that.
Hutts.
Well,
no, with that before was just Jabba is strong-willed. We don't know that the
Yeah.
Hutts are necessarily immune to mind tricks,
Yeah, that's true.
which I still just think is the worst explanation ever. It's like, just have Watto be like, no. And it's like, oh, turns out he's pretty strong-willed. Who'da thunk? Cool,
Instead, it's
moving
because
on.
he's a
Like, why do
Toydarian.
we have to invent an entire race that's immune to mind tricks for no plausible reason just to justify this point? You've already given us a scenario where mind tricks
Reasonable,
fail.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, and then we get my first majorly broad point, which I eventually did break down into smaller ones. The broad bullet point is the whole Anakin thing.
Yeah, enough said.
And here we go. Here are all the entries under the whole Anakin thing. Running across Anakin, the chosen one, by chance. Jar Jar happens to piss off someone Anakin knows shortly after that while Anakin is passing, and Anakin intervenes. A convenient sandstorm sends them to Anakin's place instead of returning to their ship. They need money, and there happens to be a major race just about to happen. Anakin happens to be apparently the only human in existence who, besides maybe Jedi, who can race in this race, and he happens to have built his own pod from scratch that he can use right now to get into that race. He also happens to be the person who built C-3PO, that character we all know. There is a series of bets here that just keep working out. Like, I really appreciate Qui-Gon cheating, which,
is hilarious.
is
for a
hilarious.
Jedi.
Yeah, it's all sorts of interesting, but I appreciate that they at least showed that, so it's like, okay, we'll make this more probable, and it's like, you're too late. You're too late, Lucas. Like, seriously. Why didn't you just say, screw it. Why pretend that we're being plausible? Because apparently he wanted Qui-Gon to be disreputable. So we got this series of bets that just keep working out. We're in the middle of the race. The pod can be fixed from the cockpit when it is damaged. Oh, not to mention, Sebulba sabotaged the cockpit in full view of an entire crowd of people, and nobody noticed.
Yep.
And then Anakin happens to win this race when he has never once won before. So for this section of the plot, that is the whole Anakin
And
thing.
not just this race. in the context of the plot, but in the context of the universe, the Boonta Eve pod race is no small thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's like winning the Indy 500 as an amateur who built your own car.
I would say the Grand Prix.
Sure.
Something like that, where it's just like, as an amateur who has failed,
who has never finished a race,
smaller races,
yes,
even to then go on and like win the Grand Prix, something that is like really, really requires a lot of talent.
It's funny because I remember as a young teenager watching that and being like, Psh, why is Padme being so pissy with Qui-Gon? Qui-Gon's cool. He knows what he's doing. Now as an adult, it's like, oh, holy crap, yeah. You were right, Padme. I gotta hand that to you. Qui-Gon was being massively irresponsible there. Except that Qui-Gon knew he was protected by the power of plot.
Plot armor. Ain't nothing like that.
All right, so Darth Maul lands on this section of Tatooine. Apparently, whatever they used to track the hologram that C.O. Bibble sent to the Queen, and to the Queen, quote unquote, and she responded, allowed him to narrow it down sufficiently that he knows that they are in this area.
Does she technically respond?
I don't know. We don't ever see her respond, but we do know that supposedly that's how he tracks them down. Yeah. So either I'm assuming like accepting the message at all allows.
They put a cookie on her thing.
Yeah, or something.
Must have.
Which that'll come up later, but something related to that. But so Maul manages to track them down to this area, and when faced with 3 cities, he goes, I'm going to send an individual droid to each of these to search it by hand, quote unquote, to search it manually.
The hard way, yeah.
And just wait. And he finds them. Yep. And he finds them right when they're about to leave, so they can conveniently get away. It becomes even more improbable if you consider it that way. And then that thing, that's the other thing, that's right. That thing spots them in Mos Espa at the Boonta Eve, I believe is where it is.
At the race, yeah.
Then it races back to him, and he races out to where their ship is. Somehow, that's not even an improbability. That's just an inconsistency, but it just occurred to me.
I mean, I'm assuming it can radio in coordinates when it's found its target.
No, but it does return to him. It shows it returning to him, yeah. Oh. And like you have the scene where it's sitting there in front of him, and then it floats off, and he goes and hops on Bloodfin or whatever it was named, and scoots on out there. Yeah, the Sith scooter. And scoots on out there to a place where this robot has never been. Good time.
Yeah.
All right. My next bullet point will come up a lot. It is Palpatine's plots. This will come up.
That should be a category in our next trivia.
This will. That'll be fun. This one particularly comes up in episode 2 and 3. It's not quite as bad in episode 1. Like the whole idea of the mastermind pulling strings behind the scenes and getting people to do exactly what they want is varying degrees of far-fetched. Like things like that can happen. Like Palpatine's whole rise to power is based off of Hitler's here. And Hitler did all sorts of shady crap to pull strings to make that happen. But with your average movie/TV villain, those get ramped up to 11 in a very implausible way. So here I'm like, okay, I can, just allowing for as much as possible, like assuming that Palpatine is just way, way, way better than I can even conceive of at reading people and predicting their actions. Assuming that he is pushing for a vote of no confidence because he has already bought and or bullied and or manipulated enough people to know that he will definitely get that nomination and win. Okay, sure, I guess I could see this all working out, but it is still quite a lot. All it takes is a few people going, screw this guy who's trying to manipulate me. I'm going to nominate someone else and then he won't have the power to manipulate me anymore. And that crumbles and nobody ever does.
And that scenario, even if they're doing a simple majority sort of thing, gets harder the more bodies you have to convince.
And it's a big body.
Thousands of systems.
Yeah.
Not just that, too, but it's thousands of systems in the Republic, and each system, as we see, has 3 representatives.
Yep.
So
except for Naboo, interestingly enough. But there used to be 3. Now there's only Palpatine.
Yeah.
That might have been another part of the planet we never saw.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the Queen and her entire retinue, and apparently a ton of pilots, unseen, return to the planet without getting caught, despite the fact that the baddies know they're coming, have been explicitly told by Sidious they're coming and you need to look out for them.
Well, and the entire Trade Federation just kind of pieces out and leaves one ship
for
their
leaves
blockade?
one ship. We don't have a blockade anymore. We're apparently not really scanning for anything approaching or whatever because they just land on the planet unmolested, unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also silly is if you have been told that these people are coming and you know that
should be
pilots
ramping that up.
are in the mix, why would you leave like 2 droids in the hangar?
Yeah.
I'd be like, cool, put a droid in every
They
cockpit.
kill quite a few droids in that, but it's like if you know Jedi are with them, then you know that that's not enough. That's not enough at all.
Then you
Although
put
I will
20
say,
droidicas at the door.
I will say, watching clips of this, I gotta say one of my favorite moments in Phantom Menace is the point where they first come to the hangar the first time round, and they look in there, and Panaka's like, "There's too many of them. We can't do this." And Qui-Gon glances in and is like, "It'll be fine. It's not a problem."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, Qui-Gon, I love you." I love it. I just love how nonchalantly dismissive he is. Where it's not even that he's being like, "Oh, son, you think that's hard?" It's just like, it's not a problem. Just cool. Qui-Gon's cool. All right.
Sure is.
And
He
then
has
we
a
have
great beard.
Yes, he does. And then we have the broad bullet point of the final battle, which I put a couple things in here. Number 1, anything Jar Jar does. Just
oh my gosh.
Jar Jar throughout that entire thing is just a bundle of improbabilities. I like how CinemaSins phrased it, actually. Like last episode, I went to CinemaSins and watched their videos of everything wrong with these to find things that I hadn't thought of. Which took longer than I expected because it turns out that all of the prequel ones are 2-parters. Which makes sense, but caught me off guard.
See that.
But yeah, he points out in that he's just like, Jar Jar, over the course of this battle, has managed to shoot more people than the entirety of all of the stormtroopers in the Empire did over their movies by accident. Next, R2 just happens to get snagged by a ship by accident, pulled up into it, and Anakin happens to hide in that same ship. Maybe because it snagged R2, but even so, it's like, we just happened to hide here in the same ship.
See, I always thought R2 kind of ran and hid there. I thought that was art on purpose.
I get the impression watching that clip that he did not expect it, like that it's because the way he whistles when it picks him up, it kind of makes me feel like that was an unexpected thing for him. Like he's paused there and all of a sudden, what the freak? I could totally be misreading that. It's not like he's very expressive, so unlike many other movies, we can't rely on Diego Luna's fabulously expressive face to carry us.
It is pretty fabulous.
It is fabulous. Well, and he's a heck of an actor. So, so for some reason, the autopilot is engaged. Like, not sure what, and what any sort of sense that makes. And the autopilot is apparently programmed to take them into an eminently dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Like, not sure who designed this autopilot.
Yeah, and
but they need to be fired hardcore.
Like the standard autopilot, or is it like linked somehow with the other ships?
Well, see, and again, that was always how I kind of reasoned it. Was like, you know, the
There's
squad leader, the flight leader is like, okay, this is where
set
we're going.
the rally point kind of a thing.
Pushes the coordinates to all the everything.
But then
else
you
in
would
the
also
fleet,
think that once it gets there, it would give autonomy back to the pilot. Like, at what point do you want to have a pilot that an autopilot that your pilot cannot handily switch off?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Anakin just missed that switch, sure, and had to wait for R2 to fix it, but
maybe there was an easy autopilot off button that
Yeah,
Anakin just
yeah,
didn't
that's what I'm
see,
saying.
but yeah.
Which is ridiculous considering Anakin is supposed to be, I am master of all things technical.
yeah, but he's never been in this ship before, and he is 9.
Anakin reads basic. That was all in whatever Nubian language
Sure.
is called. So I mean,
Like I said, I'm willing to cut as much slack as possible to these. Most of them are still horrendously improbable. So then Anakin happens to crash his ship inside the hangar near the reactor core without dying, and then starts shooting at random, and the only torpedoes he fires during this entire battle happen to hit the reactor core.
Mm-hmm.
Which, something that volatile, you think would, like, have a lead wall around it, or, like, some sort of any kind of anything where, I don't know, a malfunctioning ship couldn't, accidentally knock into it.
Well, yeah, and even something like not so close to the front door,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, there's a couple of different chambers he goes through.
Let's just say that he goes all the way back to, like, the height of the arc, like, all the way, like, literally halfway through the semicircle. Even if it's back there, again, it's like, if this is your main reactor core that can set off a chain reaction that destroys your entire ship, is there, like, not bubble wrap or something you can, like, put around it, like,
or at least
anything?
not put it with direct access from your primary hangar.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because as we all know, technology always behaves exactly the way it's designed, always, with no exceptions.
Always, every time.
You know, and you're telling me with a whole army of droids and vulture droids and stuff like that, not one of them has the chance to malfunction? What if they walk into that? What if a weapon, it's just literally your main reactor is open and exposed in your hangar bay?
Yep.
Really?
Well, and with how clumsy they make them later.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and even with all of that, for me, it's mostly the fact that by sheer chance, he happens to hit it. Like, sure, okay, it's out in the open. That's a bad design decision. Not necessarily an implausibility per se, but this is one of those moments that definitely crosses over. But it's still, he flies down not a narrow hangar by accident, crashes, doesn't die, starts shooting at random, only pulls the trigger to shoot torpedoes once, and those hit the main reactor, and then he flies away.
Yeah, that's true. It would have been better if he had been like, oh, let's empty all of these torpedoes, and 2 of them happen to hit.
Sure.
But where it's literally...
Still being plausible, but less so. It's just
where
like
he pulls the torpedo
an
trigger
escalating
once.
series of those.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a
Yep.
lot to take in. Also, let's talk about the improbability of spinning being that good of a trick.
That's true.
Let's be real.
Let's just acknowledge that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And this was just a
Because
9-year-old boy
again,
at the
playing
controls.
a lot of flight simulator games and like World War... So I play War Thunder, World War II, Korean War simulation flight sim, you know, and fighting and stuff. Spinning on your axis doesn't actually change the target area any.
Nope.
The only time it was a good trick was in Star Fox.
Yeah. There you go. So I'm just going, it's not a good trick though, Anakin. You got to barrel roll, not just spin.
Yep.
And all he does with that, by cranking it, that's all he's going to be doing is spinning.
Yep.
And for those that don't know the difference, a barrel roll isn't actually what you see in games and media. People will say a barrel roll is just spinning like Anakin did, but it's actually a big around
Loop-de-loop kind of a thing, yeah. Where you're actually changing one of the axes, you know.
Yeah. And then the final thing for the final battle is Obi-Wan's final attack on Maul.
Yeah. Yeah, Darth Maul's able to beat down a much more experienced...
Well, and just the fact that he's
Jedi.
hanging there defenseless and manages to pull himself up over Darth Maul,
Who has the high ground.
Land on the other side of them and slice him without him ever being able to respond. It's like, that's pretty darn improbable.
It would have been less improbable, and I think maybe even cooler, is if while he's jumping, he's pulling the lightsaber to him, which he is, I guess.
Yeah.
But if he pulls it sooner so that he can, like, cut him in half as he's jumping up or something. So that way there would be less reaction time for Maul, because Obi-Wan has a shocking amount
This
of
is one of
reaction
those
time.
things, it's what I complained about with a lot of the action scenes in Rogue One, where it's just like, there's some slight tweaks to the choreography, where choreographing scenes like this is hella hard. By every I've never done it myself. I have done it on stage, and it is difficult
it's
there.
low-key hard.
It could be.
Did
Anyway.
you get it, Ross? Hella hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go. Norse mythology joke. Budding.
Trying to choreograph a scene like this will leave your head Thor.
Oh!
Anyway, I don't know if I should keep doing that. Oh, to know.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you
was
got it.
good.
Go.
It's a little tougher, but okay.
Yeah, I also mispronounced it. So that anyway, but yeah, it's hard to choreograph something like that without your audience being able to see that the timing doesn't work out right.
You can see on Ross's face he's trying to work in Mjolnir somehow.
If you can pun off of Mjolnir, I am an impressed man. All right, so that's all I've got for episode 1. Anything you want to add there?
I think that was pretty thorough. And you covered all the ones that I wanted to anyway.
Well, just where it crosses over is episode 3, the one particular complaint that I always have that I will bring up later.
Sweet. Look
Yeah.
forward to it. And of course the improbability that we finally got new Star Wars after so long and it was this bad.
Real life improbability. Good job, Chris.
Zing.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Wow.
All right. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. All right. There's a lot of weird ones. So this
The
one,
better of these two. that we
I had trouble figuring out how to enunciate this one. So we start out with a ship landing on Coruscant, bomb goes off or a missile hits it or something
bomb
very
goes
vague.
off.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a bomb, but it's weird. Anyway, and it does not kill Amidala. Now, yes, she is there's a decoy and everything. The main thing here is this is clearly planned by Sidious somehow.
Yeah.
But it makes it clear later, and we'll get into this a bit more later, when Zam is talking to Django, that Zam is trying to kill Amidala. Zam does not realize that maybe that's not necessarily the goal here or anything. So we have a professional assassin doing her best to murder someone with a known history of using decoys, who nevertheless repeatedly fails. Like, that's not the worst improbability ever, especially once you get Jedi in there. We got some competent individuals protecting her. But it is just one of those little things where I'm like, it hit me when I realized that Zam didn't know that Palpatine does not necessarily want Amidala dead. Like, it's hard to know what was going on in his head, but there's several reasons to think that maybe he didn't want that.
I think he did want her dead, and Zam is just less competent. And she doesn't necessarily know that much about Padme.
True,
because she says, like, some senator from Naboo. Like, she's not even certain who it is. It's just, okay, they're from Naboo. Here's the ship. There you go.
I think I'm more on board with Palpatine not necessarily wanting her dead, because she's a prime tool to make Anakin fall, as we see later.
Which we'll get into, yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe, Zam was kind of a B-list assassin, and she
well,
was really
because
excited
here's the
with this
order
awesome
of operations.
contract.
Zam is hired by Jango Fett.
Yes.
Jango Fett is hired by Tyrannus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tyrannus is getting his orders from Sidious.
Yep.
So we've got, like, a lot of filters going on before...
Yep. And like, her surviving that is not really that improbable. It's just mainly the thing that Zam doesn't know, but she's still that unsuccessful repeatedly that got me a little bit. So then, another little one. Obi-Wan and Anakin happen to be available to guard Amidala, because it specifically says you have this conversation where you've got the Jedi in Palpatine's office, and he's like, perhaps someone she knows. Master Kenobi, for instance. And they're like, oh, that would be possible. They did just get back from this, which kind of implies that they're not around very often, but they're conveniently here now. Now, maybe Palpatine planned it this way explicitly so that they'd be around, but then again, why would he bother to plan it explicitly when they're going to be around if he is actually trying to kill Amidala? So therefore maybe he's not, but then if he's not, why is he actually hiring people to kill her? Like, this is sloppy. This is sloppy stuff.
Unless, through his great power of the dark side, he knew that he could give them orders to kill her and that she would survive and that all would go as he has foreseen.
Sure.
He has foreseen it.
Exactly.
It's true.
He does. That is kind of his catchphrase. Everything is going.
But he never mentions foreseeing anything here, so...
Can't. He's got to keep it secret.
He doesn't have an underling to gloat to.
He talks to Tyrannus at the end. I mean, come on.
There could have been gloating before or
I'll
after,
allow. I said it was a little one, all right?
I wouldn't put it past Palpatine to do some off-screen gloating.
I am sure. His gloating is what does him in the end. But
That's true.
Then
So you
this
could say that
assassin
his
probe.
overconfidence is his weakness?
It could be.
Oh.
So this assassin probe that Zam sends because it's a more subtle option. This kind of strays into that dumb decisions category where it's like, this is more just bad writing and not that someone actually, like, something statistically improbable actually happened in the universe. But it is this sort of thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to send this small, presumably somewhat disposable droid to assassinate someone, and then if someone, say, jumps through a window and latches onto this thing, it's going to come straight back to me.
Yeah. I'd like to back it up one step further, because this is where I thought you were going. The bad decision-making crossing over here. Let me put two giant centipedes that apparently are sentient enough to know when a robot is looking at them.
Yep.
But can't seem to be sentient enough to get the job done quickly. Rather than... And apparently we can just get right up to the window of this senator.
No problem at all.
No security outside.
Apparently a single individual can jump headfirst through this glass, so it's not that tough.
Right. Yeah, it's not, laser-proof or anything. So why not just mount a fat cannon on this thing and be like, hey, there you are in bed, it's minigun time. You know?
We do see the droid open up a hole in the shield. There's a little security shield of some sort in it.
Great. So open up the shield, jam your minigun barrel through, and open fire. Turn her into paste, you know? Rather than, like, it just... Yeah, toss a grenade. Yeah, drop a bomb, drop some poison gas, or, like, literally...
Toss a couple grenades in there. Good luck lightsabering that away.
Yeah. it seems like of all the possible methods of assassinating your sleeping, stationary, unaware target, poisonous centipedes is the least effective.
This is from a person who has not explicitly been told not to kill this person and just make it look like we're trying to kill them.
Yeah.
This is from someone who is supposedly actually trying to kill them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a blurry area there. Okay, broad bullet point. All of the chase.
Or also, again, disposable and not wanting to get back to your, you don't want to trace back to yourself. Why not make like your little probe thing, also a bomb?
Yeah.
Self-destruct option.
Yep. That would make a lot of sense. And
Unless
then
Sam
it comes
is really
back.
poor, and that's why she needs it back.
Well, and then it comes back. If she was that poor, then maybe she should have tried to shoot Obi-Wan instead of shooting the probe droid.
Yeah.
She wants that probe droid back. But she doesn't need a Jedi. And how the heck is he going to dodge right there?
Yeah.
Aside from just letting go, and then you get the same result as shooting the probe droid.
Maybe she actually was aiming.
Maybe.
She was a good shot either.
Maybe there's that.
Maybe Zam is just not very good at her job.
Well, I think it's eminently clear that Zam is not good at her job, one way or another. But
oh, shit.
this is a shapeshifter who slips into a bar to hide and then doesn't shape change and leave.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna save this discussion for our ranking bounty hunters episode, and she'll fit in squarely at the bottom.
Yeah, she's got to
Our bounty hunter bracket. There
Yeah.
we go. She'll be
be.
first
Okay,
to go.
so all of the chase. Anakin conveniently arrives in time to catch Obi-Wan after the droid has been shot out of his hands. Somehow, in the process of falling to his death and catching the back of Anakin's speeder and climbing in, Obi-Wan somehow saw where the shooter went.
Saw where it came from, even.
Saw where it came from and where they went.
His head about him.
Yeah, despite the fact he wasn't even looking in that direction for most of the fall.
That's true. Dang, Obi-Wan.
Then there's Anakin's shortcut. It's like, hey, there are literally infinite directions that this person could go. Like, apparently everyone's just flying along invisibly marked lanes here on Coruscant, but they don't have to. It is also abundantly clear from the course of this chase.
Yeah.
So they went that way. I'm pretty sure if I drive over here and then jump out, they'll be right there, right on time. And especially that he jumps off that high and falls that far has always just been so bad for me. Even at the time, watching this as a teenage boy, I was just like, okay, this is cool. Obi-Wan just jumped out of a skyscraper and grabbed onto he's so cool. Really should have been Anakin that did that character-wise, but hey, whatever. At the time, I wasn't aware of that, but it was just cool. And then they're flying around and there's a chase scene and it's a city and it's all cool. And then Anakin did what? What? Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, you can say, like, okay, the Force or whatever is
Sure,
guiding him, which they do mention that, like, oh, I felt this, whatever.
Well, that's pretty explicitly what it has to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But there's only, like you said, there's only so many times you can, like, hand wave the Force and make it go away.
And in these prequels in particular, the Force hand waves a lot of stuff. And how the
Yes,
Force
it
works is
does.
hand waved a lot. So then Anakin latches onto Zam's ship somehow, and without splattering on the windshield. And
and I was gonna say this too about like the sort of like the hero fall, 3-point landing, cool, like it does look cool. There's no arguing. It looks awesome, and they do it all the time in the Clone Wars.
And in anything, it's like I don't care that
Yeah.
Iron Man's skull Iron Man's brain should be splattered against the inside of his skull every time he lands. It's cool.
Yeah. But it's like, okay, but they're Jedi, so they're maybe force slowing themselves right before they hit, or, okay, we can force wave it away.
Yeah, that's why I didn't actually list him landing on that ship as an improbability. It was just sort of like, sure, whatever. But then Anakin, for some reason, tries, like, I don't know what he's trying to do with his lightsaber there when they want to question this person, but he's, like, doing something with his lightsaber. She shoots it out of his hand, and Obi-Wan arrives just in time and in the right place to catch it.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to, like, cut open the cockpit to get her, but he's so awkward about it. It's like, dude.
It's just weird.
Yeah, whatever.
And then the ship and the Jedi somehow survive that power coupling thing. Like, that seems like a bit of a stretch to me, but...
Flying through live electric arcs.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, really? Have you played Red Alert 2? Do you know what Tesla coils do?
I mean, if it weren't an open cockpit speeder,
You could maybe
I
justify
could buy that.
Yeah, that like airplanes, they can get hit by lightning.
Yeah.
So okay.
Iron Man can get hit by lightning without it phasing him and just charges him up. Okay.
But I don't think an open cockpit biplane can get hit by lightning and the pilot survives.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everything after that in the chase is mostly just bad decision making / writing. But then we get the Camino Saber Dart. And you know where I'm going here. First off, the Django makes that shot with that little tiny non-aerodynamic dart.
Yeah, that's
like,
really
I don't
true.
know if this was like a 3-stage rocket thing that just lost its other stages as it went. Because that's the only way I can think of that he plausibly,
The fins articulate and it's guided.
or something.
Yeah, maybe they got nanotechnology or something, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's...
But then that this entire plan apparently hinged on Django using that dart when he's like the backup plan to whatever Zam's doing or something. Like, so he planned for Zam to get cornered and so that he could kill her. So that, like, that's just ludicrously implausible. Like, that's ridiculous. And then, of course, Obi-Wan takes this Camino Saber Dart.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here and just share the meme that I see resurfacing. I happened to see this meme just today. Just today I saw this, and it's totally true. It's honestly what should have happened by all probability.
Yep.
That Obi-Wan's like, oh, what can you tell me about this? And he holds the dart, and he's like, I don't know, never seen it before.
Credits roll.
Credits roll. Created by George Lucas, you know? Because it's like, what are the odds that, like, even if, okay, so, I have no problem with a Jedi knowing a guy who knows things. Like, there are people like that, and Jedi, they're law enforcement, so you probably do know a guy who knows things. But what are the odds that your guy who knows things happens to know that this thing that you're holding comes from a planet that's been deleted from the Jedi archives, that's way, way, way out in the Outer Rim, that nobody ever goes to, that these people don't talk to like anybody outsiders, and he knows, like, just by literally the first glance, oh, yes, let me tell you exactly, like...
Yep, and don't forget, the bad guy's plot hinges on Obi-Wan figuring this out.
Yeah, it's pretty unlikely.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So next, I have this bullet point, which I just left broad, the entire romance.
Yeah. Can we just leave it there?
Yep,
like,
we'll just leave it there. We don't even need
every
to get into
point,
that.
Well, I think I'm doing an
step
episode
of
on
the
that
way.
later, so
Yeah. Oh, that's true,
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, boy.
So, somehow, Obi-Wan figures out where he needs to go, where Palpatine's trying to lead him by the nose in the most ridiculous way possible. He gets there, the folks are just like, oh, you're a Jedi, therefore we can tell you everything. Sure, okay. They take him to see Django. Django has his armor put away, but not all the way away.
Yeah.
Just a little handy thing there.
Now, before we go too far, I do actually want to play the opposition for a moment. Was Palpatine's plan for Obi-Wan to find out all these things, or was his plan...
Well, his plan is to throw the galaxy into civil war so that he can
but
create
he
his
also
emergency to
needs
get powers.
his clone army to be brought to the Republic by someone other than him in a way that looks...
But does it need to be other than him?
Kind of does. That's going to be pretty suspicious
It
if
would
he just
be
shows up with a clone army that he commissioned.
Exactly. It's way less suspicious if the Jedi are like, somebody in our own ranks screwed up somewhere and made this army. We'll take care of that under wraps on our own so we don't look like idiots.
Yeah,
But
and
hey,
still,
Republic,
it's still
we have this
improbable.
army.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but that's less improbable than Palpatine going, well, I've been a hard nose on the Trade Federation, and now we
I
have
mean, even if Palpatine didn't plan on this, so the alternate version of this is still implausible. Palpatine didn't plan all this, but for some reason, his primary assassin, who is taking care of all sorts of things, his primary bounty hunter, is using weaponry that explicitly connects him to a specific planet, despite the fact that there have got to be millions of better weapons that are just nondescript and wouldn't connect him. So one way or the other, this is really implausible.
Yeah.
The fact that he chose to use a physical projectile instead of a laser is odd in and of itself.
Yeah. So I'm going to read these three in quick succession here. Django has the armor put away, but not all the way away. Django beats Obi-Wan in a fist fight, but not all the way. Django blows up Obi-Wan, but not all the way.
That's so good. Oh,
see, and here's the thing about it, is Jango makes it pretty clear when he's talking to Boba later that he's not explicitly trying to lead Obi-Wan to Geonosis, even though, again, their plan kind of hinges on that. And so either he wasn't part of that, or just, man, Palpatine has a really high opinion of Master Obi-Wan here. Like, because he is blatantly trying to kill Obi-Wan.
And all of these great bounty hunters really aren't that great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, him taking Obi-Wan on hand-to-hand, that's pretty impressive. Not sure why Obi-Wan never decides to just like, hey, Force push, you're done. But, okay.
Or, the Force holds you in the air.
Force do anything, really, except jump.
Yeah, well, I don't know, the bounty hunters, like, I think we fairly well established that Zam may not be, like, an A-list bounty hunter.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so the reason she sucks, okay, you're not in the big leagues, that's fine. But Boba, or not Boba, Jango, he kind of gives Obi-Wan a run for his money. I could see why you're an A-list bounty hunter.
Sure.
You're going toe-to-toe with somebody with the Force and a lightsaber.
Yep.
Although, yeah, that's just me playing devil's advocate. The reality is, you should have had your butt handed to you.
Well, or I'll buy him winning, sure. But winning in a way that conveniently leaves Obi-Wan alive and uninjured.
Yes, exactly.
That's a bit more of a stretch. Like, you're not going to win a fight with a Jedi without pulling out extreme prejudice, I feel like, generally. Although, unless you're a clone in Order 66. But
yeah. Well, and especially where it's like, okay, Obi-Wan is trying to capture, if not kill me. So it is a fight for your life. And now you've made it to your ship with its advanced quad laser, whatever, shenanigan guns. I'd be like, cool, sorry Kaminoan's taken out of my next paycheck, but you're losing this platform.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to nuke it from orbit. Here we go. I'm not stopping firing. We're gonna cut the neck off right there. We're just gonna blow a hole in it. You'll have to repair this. I'm sorry, take it out of my next paycheck.
Yep. Yep, that would have been wise. Yeah, so, and then again, Obi-Wan manages to avoid him later where he's significantly outgunned in the ship and manages to fake his own death, and you get the wonderful cliche of, well, nobody could have survived that. Like, obviously he's dead, and we fly on, and then he follows us, which is just like, dang, that seems a little improbable that you pulled that off, but okay. Oh, and then, here we go. Obi-Wan makes it to the surface of Geonosis, within walking distance of secret separatist meeting/headquarters, without getting noticed.
He lands within a few meters of a secret entrance to the secret foundry where the secret meeting is happening.
Well, and it took at least a day for them to find his ship as it was.
Yeah. It's like that.
This makes sneaking into Theed look like a cakewalk by comparison.
Yeah. There's no security cameras anywhere. There's no, in a factory full of battle droids being built, there's not a single battle droid patrol in any hallway anywhere.
And then a hidden Obi-Wan happens to find/overhear separatist leaders talking about very critical and important information.
And again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're planning literally a highly illegal revolution against your government, you don't post a single guard in any of the surrounding hallways. And again, this is a Geonosian factory, so it's not like Poggle doesn't know that, hey, there's a little hallway up there where someone might eavesdrop. Let's toss a battalion of battle droids up there just in case.
Well, and you know what? They're in their own base. I can understand walking around talking. It's just that Obi-Wan happens to be there at the right time to overhear it all.
Or that the Geonosians who have a tendency to sleep in whatever random hallway.
Yeah, exactly.
None of them happen to be in this one.
Yep.
That Obi-Wan.
Well, and I will grant that the arriving in time to secretly overhear the bad guys discussing their badness is a very common cliche. So, I can even waive a little bit of the unlikelihood for that, where it's like, okay, we've accepted this from so many places in Hollywood that at this point, can we really complain? But even so, it is improbable. It always is. Okay, let's jump planets for a moment for a minor... This is a minor improbability, but I do think it's slightly improbable. Watto conveniently happens to know where Clegg Lars lives. I am not up to date on my slaving protocols, but generally I feel like if I sell someone, I'm not that concerned about where they get taken. Maybe he just happens to
compare that
know.
to anything. Like, if you sell your car, do you honestly care where the person lives who's buying your car?
And maybe you happen to know. Maybe he knows Clegg-Lars by reputation or something. Maybe he had to hand deliver Shmi. I don't know, but
well, I think
it's
about
still
it like
improbable.
this.
It's at least a slight improbability.
I am known in my local gaming meta here as the guy who can get things. So I often can get people Armada or Legion stuff
Kyler
for
Red
less.
Williamson.
Exactly. And I play with these people a lot. Steven is one of our listeners, our official fact checker, Steven. Even if he doesn't want the title, it doesn't matter, Steven, you're the official fact checker.
It's not that he doesn't want the title, it's that he was upset that I was having him fact check things about the podcast and not about Star Wars. And I'm going to keep doing that because it's funny.
Yep, it doesn't matter. And it's like, I like Steven. I don't know where he lives. I feel like Steven is my friend. I don't know where he lives. I know he lives, I know the city he lives in, but I have no idea, how to tell you to get to his house.
Yep.
There are people that I play with on a fairly regular basis who live 15 minutes from my house. Couldn't tell you where they live.
and I mean, I will allow that there are occasionally people that I just happen to know where they live through some random circumstance.
I bring that up because these are people to whom I sell things.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's about as close as we can get without me actually selling them slaves. So it's like, I'm
glad to hear you haven't gotten back into that.
Well, yeah, exactly. It was a little hot there for a while. Got to cool off.
Yeah.
Well, and I keep thinking about how this is going to get political and historical, I guess. But I keep thinking about how we are able to trace certain genealogies back through the slave trade in our own history.
That's
yes,
fair. But that's more coming the route from the buyers instead of the sellers.
But Tatooine doesn't strike me as a place where genealogical records of slaves are generally available.
Well, but Watto says he checked his record, so he's apparently noting something.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's true.
But usually a person knows where they bought something from, but the seller doesn't necessarily know where the buyer is from.
And in that sense, I could see Watto being like, let me check my sale records, okay, Clegg-Lars, one Shmi Skywalker for, $10 or whatever it was. So I could see him having a record, but does he then was Clegg-Lars required to give his address, his home address for purchase of a slave?
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Because it might be a lot higher controlled commodity.
Yep. Who knows?
I love how
except that it clearly wasn't when Qui-Gon bought Anakin, but...
True. That is true.
Yeah.
But I mean, and either way, I can concoct some scenarios where this could happen and just be kind of like, okay, sure, maybe he knows Clegg-Lars by reputation and happens to know that, he's a farmer that farms this area. Moisture farms this area, however that works. Sure. Whatevs. It still is a little convenient and improbable, though.
Yeah.
So, it went on the list. Then Anakin arrives, he asks where his mom is, and they say, oh, sand people took her, and he finds them in one evening. Tracks down these random sand people in one evening. He
doesn't just track down the men, but the women and children too.
Yes. He leaves in the afternoon at some point, and by night time, at some point in the night, he has found their
it does. There is a montage of him
there is a montage of him
to
tracking
the Jawas
down, but it's still
whatever.
this is
but
one
still,
evening.
Hours.
Yeah. His tracking skills are pretty good.
Apparently. Not his romance skills, but although
nope.
apparently
they don't teach romance at the academy.
That's true. They don't. Apparently, that was one of the repeated complaints of CinemaSins is do they not have sex ed in the Jedi Academy? This feels like something basic everybody should know, and he doesn't get it. I was like, yeah, that's legit. And of course, Anakin arrives just in time for Shmi to die.
Yep.
Which I can excuse with, people can carry on in weird ways and then finally give up the ghost when they've reached, reaching a goal, and they die. As my dad always tells me, it's don't set goals, they kill you. But...
I'm going to have you tell that to my wife.
I absolutely will. So he arrives just in time for her to die. I do not find it's even slightly implausible that he managed to slaughter an entire village of sand people.
No, that's totally
plausible.
Absolutely believable.
Okay, so then Obi-Wan is on Geonosis. Obi-Wan wants to get a message to the Jedi Council, but it's too far, and so he sends one to Anakin, and apparently he can track Anakin's location from several planets away. He thinks Anakin's supposed to be on Naboo, so he widens his range, and there's Anakin.
It reminds me of another great meme where it's Anakin's on Tatooine. What's he doing there? He hates sand.
But it is, this is what I thought of when we were discussing Darth Maul trying to track them down, where it's like, apparently, I don't know if Anakin is just like openly broadcasting his location for some reason on this mission that he's not supposed to be undertaking in a place where he's not supposed to be. But apparently from Geonosis, Obi-Wan can just go, well, let me cast a wide scanning net. Oh, there's Anakin on Tatooine. Wow. Scanning is as the level of ability that they have with their scanning tools is like the Force in these movies, where it just varies what it can do, or what we can and can't do at any given time according to the needs of the plot. Hand waved, moving on.
Yep.
And it's quite something. So, Anakin and Padme make it to the surface of Geonosis, not within walking distance, but literally within the secret separatist meeting / headquarters place. They literally land in a vent that has a convenient landing platform for some reason.
Yeah, either that or the grate on the vent is super strong.
Yeah. Without getting noticed, after Obi-Wan got caught doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, apparently they did not ramp up security at all here. But that's
we caught one Jedi. I mean, how many more can there be?
Well, apparently they didn't need to, because their factory is its own security. Which is the next bullet point. Factory is dumb. I've been over this.
Yeah.
But highly improbable that a group of supposedly competent people could be taken out by factory machinery by accident.
Well, also one thing that bugs me here is how another point that everyone just ignores droids.
Mm-hmm.
You have all sorts of Geonosian soldiers just wander past R2 and 3PO. They even look at them.
Yep.
They just keep going.
Like, droids can't be a problem. We're only building an entire freaking droid army in this building.
Well, and you're looking at two that are not the type you build.
Yep.
That
exactly.
be in your facility.
Well, technically,
That's exactly
3PO
right.
was in two different spots, mixed in with a bunch of other droids.
Yeah, but again,
that's its own ridiculous,
if you're
stupid
in a car
implausibility.
factory, and all of a sudden somebody is like wheeling a motorcycle by, it's kind of like, okay, similar, but
we don't build those.
But we don't build those.
Not
What?
even motorcycle. I mean, if you're in the Ford factory and all of a sudden a Chevy comes down the line, you kind of...
Well, but that's what I was saying, is like, I think it's different enough to be like a car versus a motorcycle. Like, cool, we're in the Ford factory.
But did we start
and,
building Astromechs? Hey, Phil, are we building Astromechs?
Yeah.
Whose Astromech is this?
Yeah, no kidding. It would be like, wait, what?
And my next bullet point here was C-3PO's portion of the factory thing is especially dumb.
Yes.
Yeah. So, handy arena execution provides time/opportunity to stall/escape. It's a good thing they didn't just stick him in a chamber and gas it. I mean, not pulling the Nazi approach, or
melt
lethal,
him in a pot of melting metal that Padme was already in.
Yeah.
Or just shoot them while you have them in handcuffs.
Shoot them down,
like
lethal injection. There's a lot of options they could have gone with, but they went with the one that conveniently cinematically stalled. Which, it is a movie, so...
So the in-canon reason for this is interesting. It's from the... I want to say the Tarkin novel. Because the Geonosians are... they end up building the Death Star, right? Mm-hmm. With all their labor and stuff. And it gives you a little bit of backstory on like Geonosian culture and stuff. And apparently, when a Geonosian hive doesn't have a massive building project, the workers get uppity. They start to get kind of frenzied and can create problems. Which is why Geonosians apparently will sometimes even build something just to have the workers then tear it down and rebuild it a different way, just so that they have something to do.
It's like the equivalent of soldiers being forced to dig ditches and fill them in.
Yeah, for reals. And so
that really is.
Part of the reason they were doing the execution in the arena was that executing in the arena was one way to keep workers' attention focused so that they wouldn't attack each other and get wily.
Despite the fact that they did currently have a huge building project going. All sorts of
Well, they hadn't started building the Death Star yet.
But they are building all sorts of crap for the Trade Federation.
Yes, that's true.
For the Separatists.
True. But yeah, apparently
I buy it though. We'll still use that. Why not?
But even then, I think that the droid assembly lines were mostly automated, it seems.
It did seem they were mostly automated.
But there's still ships and all this, that, and the other. We see droid control ships landed on the planet, presumably for takeoff. Anyway, sure, it's cool. It's also conveniently a way to stall and be more cinematic.
Yes, absolutely. Not to forget that Padme has the high ground in this battle, which is why she does so well against the Nexu.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's actually the one after this one. The one I had next was, did did Padme just pick the lock of her space handcuffs with a bobby pin?
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did. Apparently, technology has not come very far when it comes to handcuffs.
All you need is a single piece of metal to flip the latch on the
That
inside.
they conveniently did not take off of her belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least she didn't even take it out of her hair. It's like, it's literally
Did she
just
pull
on
it
her
out of her
belt.
belt?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Are you going to go over more of the fight?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
Padme in
Next,
particular?
we've got Forceless Padme survives as long as she does versus the Nexu.
The high ground, I'm telling you.
Apparently.
She got to the top of that column and, you know.
Because I have two particular complaints with her.
Please.
Her fight. So the first one is when she swings with the chain to kick the Nexu off the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When she first jumps off, you see there's a lot of slack in the chain, and she just kind of takes it.
Yes.
So Carrie and I have been watching what's it called? It's on Netflix. It's the Beastmaster Challenge.
Uh-huh.
One of their trials is something semi-similar where you're actually jumping from something and you're grabbing a chain. These big beefy people still have a hard time gripping onto those chains enough, and they're not even like there's not even the same forces that Padme is under jumping down.
Yep.
They're jumping across, she's jumping down.
They're just grabbing a chain in midair.
Yeah, and she's actually having to hold on to the chain at terminal velocity against her own body weight.
She reaches
you know?
terminal velocity, but yeah, it's...
And then also convert that velocity down into a swing to the side, which
Yep.
it also shouldn't, but
Yeah.
whatever. Science!
Yep. That would go for the scientific and plaza. There's quite a few of those. I had a similar one with... I was watching some clips for reference material, where I was like, okay, does this fit or not? And I had the scene where... In episode 3 where they're coming down the elevator shaft and they swing out the elevator doors while
Yes.
Palpatine is hanging from their ankles, and it's just like, what? Well, that is so that has always been so dumb. And I never minded because that sequence is a lot of fun in a lot of the right ways, but it's still just like, oh god.
And then she hops off the top of her 40-foot pillar onto the back of the reek,
Yeah.
and doesn't even give so much as an
Yeah.
as she hits the bottom.
Just so you know, George, that does hurt ladies too.
Yeah.
And see, here's the thing. Even ignoring the pain that your body would be under,
Yes.
jumping off of a 40-foot pillar onto a peaked spine of a creature is going to mess you up a little bit.
Yep.
You're talking at
You
very
could,
least
you
a
could be
broken
wearing
pelvis.
you could be wearing all of the steel cups you want for protection. It's still going to potentially shatter your spine and or other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that reek looks fairly solid. I mean, it's not you're not landing on a foam pit from 40 feet. I mean, it's
Nope.
it's got you're landing on the creature's spine. Like, oh man. Well, I guess it it didn't necessarily have to be 40 feet. If the pillars are 40 feet, you got to take into account how high the Nexu or the reek is.
Even still.
But
it's
even
not-
so, you're what? Let's say it's 10 feet tall, which I think might be pushing it. But that's still, 30
Yeah.
feet.
dropping, even if it's 20 feet, like, and maybe they're not quite 40 feet tall, it's tall. We're dropping 20 feet
10
crotch
feet would
first
hurt.
is not comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't even show her, like, landing feet first and then dropping.
No, yeah.
Like,
she
'cause
lands,
that could make sense. I could
she
see
lands
that.
crotch first,
but-
and her first concern is smooching Anakin's cheek.
Exactly.
And again, okay, so Anakin forced her down. Well,
Oh, yeah, like,
I mean,
used
he
the
probably
Force
did that
to
too.
use the Force.
sure, potentially, theoretically.
He probably used the Force to soften that landing, but still.
Maybe.
Jeez, it's bad. And then just the improbability that a slash across the back of your shirt is going to rip off your entire
I wasn't even gonna, yep, that's true. My next bullet point is cut that timing close there, Mace. Which is a very common cinematic probability thing where it's like, oh, we arrived just in the very last moment, nick of time to be able to save everyone here. The next bullet point after that is cut that timing close there, Yoda.
Yeah.
Because we literally use this trope twice in a row.
Yep.
First for Mace bringing all his Jedi in, and then Yoda showing up with the clones. Yep.
Oh, I always took those together. I was thinking you were talking about Yoda walks in when Obi-Wan and Anakin are...
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But no, we're talking here about Yoda
Yeah.
arriving in the nick of time to save Mace and all the others who are now trapped in the middle of the arena.
Oh, it was just the Jedi on their own at first, wasn't it?
Yes,
That's
it
right.
was.
That's right.
Yes, it was. And then you get that circle where you've got like 15 Jedi left all blocking laser bolts, somehow managing to get all of those and stay alive, and Padme, who's just conveniently still alive anyway, because plot armor.
Well, and she does have a crazy boyfriend protector.
And plot armor.
And plot armor.
Because her plot armor won't fail. Her plot armor is life-sustaining. As soon as that stuff gets turned off, she's gone. For no reason.
Yep.
So, we all hop in ships, we go chasing after Dooku, and the ship that is chasing after Dooku is conveniently out of rockets. What did it fire at? Oh, I guess we do see it fire at some stuff, but it's like, it's out of rockets. Sorry, guys, we can't shoot down Dooku. Guess we'll have to chase him.
Out of rockets and also apparently lasers.
Lasers not working?
Yep.
Yeah.
Lasers don't shoot things. They just warm things up slightly. And then we have the convenient high sand dune to catch Padme.
Yeah.
And then...
her back would be on fire. I mean, you've got 3 open wounds.
And you just landed in sand. Yeah.
And you just land... Yeah, and
it's coarse and it gets everywhere. And,
oh my gosh, that would sting.
Well, that poor pilot, I guess, needed a couple more hours in the simulator. He hit that bad.
Yep.
Dune, whatever it's called.
Dooku doesn't kill Obi-Wan or Anakin, which kind of like, I mean, I guess maybe he's sort of not trying because he just sort of torments Obi-Wan, but
I could see why. I mean, because again, the dark side is ultimately cowardly. Sure. And so he's going, we're fighting a losing battle against the Republic here. If I don't leave right now, I might miss my window to escape.
It wouldn't necessarily take longer to kill them.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying I could maybe see kind of maybe that, but it does seem
or maybe
weird.
He just, for some reason, I mean, I can buy that he doesn't want Anakin dead. Like, he's under orders to keep Anakin alive or something. Obi-Wan, less so, but hey, whatevs.
And if he is under orders to keep Anakin alive, that should be ringing some Sith alarm bells.
Yeah.
If your boss is like, oh, hey, if you could just not kill that kid, why? Oh, well, just no reason.
No reason.
A few months later, hey, my old apprentice is around, and you know that we can't have that. Let's go take care of him. Okay. Next bullet point. Cut that timing close, Yoda.
There we go.
Yep.
Again.
Yep. And then, well, and heck, you get that a couple times in a row. You get Obi-Wan fighting Dooku, and then Anakin jumps right in there, and then you get Yoda doing it. So
Anakin wakes
this
up.
is the second time in this endgame that we have used that trope twice in a row. So then Dooku manages to get off planet without being tracked at all. Like, apparently this is not a thing we're concerned about right now. Sure. And then my final bullet point here is, I've mentioned a couple times, Palpatine's plots here. So he bombs Amidala to start things, but does not tell the assassin that Amidala isn't supposed to die unless she is. But then the next thing is he finagles Anakin and Padme into place to fall in love? Like, he planned that shit? Like, really? I mean, this guy's spent enough time around Anakin. I feel like he should know better than to expect that to actually happen.
Well, he doesn't need Padme to fall in love with Anakin. He just needs
True,
Anakin to
he
fall
just
in love
needs
with
Anakin
Padme
pawning over. But, I
for
mean,
that
like,
to work.
at the same time, there's always the possibility that she just shuts him down hard and he has to deal with that and moves on or something. Like, I don't know. It just all, like, he very obviously manipulates them into being together in the same place.
But I think that's the thing, though, is that I think for him, that's a win-win situation.
Yeah. And I will say that going into this is one of the things I like most about the Clone Wars TV show, is that we get to see things that, it's never quite explicitly spelled out, but we get to see that Palpatine has tons of plans that don't work out throughout the course of that war, where he's clearly angling for something, and then the Jedi thwart it, and he has to just deal. He's clearly very good at dealing and rolling with the punches and just kind of going, I can work with that. And there's a lot of these things that I could go, sure, he just put stuff in places and went, all right, I can work with how that turned out.
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't necessarily need Obi-Wan to find Geonosis necessarily and start the war right then, but it did, and he went, oh, that's okay. That's okay. I've got people in place to pull in the army here. I can make this work for all the other things I need to do. Maybe he's just really good at thinking on his feet.
That's how I feel about the whole killing Padme thing. I think he probably did want her dead.
Maybe, yeah.
And then it was kind of like, okay, well, she didn't die. Oh, but Anakin's falling in love with her. All right.
Except that they literally haven't seen each other in 10 years, and he's like, I'm going to get these two together.
No, not right then, but just like, okay, she is not assassinated. okay, what am I going to do? And then, I haven't seen him in 10 years. Oh, he's clearly got feelings for her. Okay, well, that might be an avenue to explore.
Sure.
And at that point, whether she if she accepts him, things happen as they did, and if she rejects him, that
could potentially push him to the dark
Maybe,
side.
yeah. But again, that he puts them in place together for all these purposes. That it works out how he wants.
And that's what I'm saying is, like, these are definitely improbable.
Yeah.
And often in the extreme, but there's also a possible.
And then he gets
explanation for it in the
Amidala
universe.
off planet so that he can manipulate Jar Jar into giving him emergency powers, because apparently Jar Jar is so predictable. Sure.
Yeah, the one time that Jar Jar is actually predictable and does exactly what he sets out to do.
Then we have Jango plant evidence that he only had the opportunity to use because the initial very real assassination attempts failed.
You know what that means, though, Chris? That's further evidence that Jar Jar is the Sith Lord.
Yeah, naturally. To lead Obi-Wan to Kamino and the Clone Army, even though the evidence is super obscure and the planet that he needs to find has explicitly been deleted from the archives, which immediately leads to greater suspicion about what's going on here. And makes it more difficult and less plausible that Obi-Wan's going to make it to Kamino.
It does make you wonder how that would have gone down if they hadn't discovered it. So it's like, okay, your initial plan goes through with whatever that is. Nobody discovers Kamino. The Separatists still build their army and launch a civil war. How do you then be I'm going to pull this army of millions of clones out of my back pocket?
Let's say that maybe it was not necessarily his plan to bring the army in that way, and it was not necessarily his plan to start the war in that moment in that way. That means that all of this stuff just happened by sheer coincidence and worked out exactly how he wants. That's even more implausible.
As far as, like, if things had worked out, like if Obi-Wan had never found the thing and Palpatine had to be like, oh, look at this random army, I feel like that is the route he would go, because that's what he did with Grievous. My clone intelligence found the location of Grievous. The Jedi's have been looking for this for how long?
He's controlling the Separatists. He can literally just have them attack the Republic at any time. Like, that war can start the second he wants it to. So
yeah. Which is weird, because the Jedi were generals in the army. They were the top of the army.
And they had no idea. How did they miss it? Yeah.
Yeah, how did your clones not report up the chain of command to you, but they reported to...
Yep. Especially when the Kaminoans explicitly built this for the Republic and for the Jedi, though. Like, it was a Jedi that brought him to... Obi-Wan shows up and
Jedi
they're just like...
paid for it.
Yeah. Obi-Wan shows up and they're just like, oh, you're a Jedi. We'll tell you literally everything, except about this one order that we implanted in these clones. We're not going to mention that, because apparently we're not supposed to, but we never show any indication that we have any reservations about telling the Jedi literally everything about this. Okay. I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so that's episode 2. Anything else you wanted from episode 2?
Don't think so.
All right, episode 3. Let's do this. Palpatine's plots. Let's just acknowledge that any plan that presupposes a specific soldier will survive an actual battle to save you is on shaky ground. Like...
Well, and see, I think that's another situation of Palpatine wins either way.
How? If Anakin dies in the middle of that battle?
He still has Dooku.
Kind of, I guess. Like, again, it's just pretty haphazard is all.
Yeah, it is. It's very cavalier, but like if he gets snatched and still goes with the Separatists, well, he's already in command of it anyway, you know. The whole thing was more of a ruse, I feel like.
Except that Anakin is pretty instrumental to his plan of destroying all the Jedi in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know. How was that going to come? Was Dooku going to invade the Jedi Temple and wipe them out? Like,
well, no, and
that would have been awesome.
It would have been, but I don't know. Anakin is pretty clearly central to his plots, and obviously there's a war on, and you can't avoid sending a general into war. But all the same, when it's like, okay, this is explicitly a situation he is allowing himself to be kidnapped for a purpose, to be kidnapped, quote unquote, for a purpose, and that purpose is basically to draw Anakin and Obi-Wan into conflict with Dooku, rid himself of Dooku, put himself in a position to talk to Anakin, but all of that presupposes that Anakin's going to survive the battle. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
It's shaky.
Well, but I think even if he doesn't, Palpatine still executes Order 66.
Sure, there's some room to work. He'll roll with the punches.
Yeah. You don't have a Jedi to lead the charge on the temple, but that just means there's a siege of the temple for however long, which would have eventually turned out the same anyway, I think.
Well, we'll get into that. Okay, so mid-fight, they get into they manage to make their way up into the throne room up there, and Obi-Wan is conveniently unconsciousified during this fight. That's another of those handy little moments. And this is one of my favorite. This is one of those bad decisions, but come on, this is so improbable, it has to go here. Dooku just goes along with his own execution. Like, he's kneeling there, holy crap, I lost my hands. Good, Anakin. Now kill him. Wait, what?
Yeah.
He looks at his master like, huh? And then says nothing. Like, he's like, kill him now. Palpatine's the evil Sith Lord you're looking for. I know because I am one of the Sith Lords. I have been working for him this entire time. Believe me, don't believe me, that is something I would be saying right at that moment.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't. That seems improbable to me. That I mean, he just lost his hands. Maybe he's having trouble thinking through things on his feet there.
Maybe he was being force choked by Palpatine.
Maybe,
Unbeknownst
who
to
knows?
the
But
You would think Anakin would like sense the Force being used or something.
maybe
you know?
nobody
That's why I
sensed
became-
anything that Palpatine ever does ever.
Well,
So
that's why I became unsure of it as I was saying it.
yeah, that's fair. But either way, Dooku apparently just goes along with his own execution for some reason. Convenient landing strip in planet-covering city is convenient.
You know what? Maybe...
Yeah.
Hold on, before we move on. Maybe it was more of a seppuku moment for Count Dooku. I have brought this honor to my master!
I don't know about that.
It doesn't seem that way.
He just seems surprised, like,
Yeah.
you're doing what? And then just sort of goes, oh. Like,
Well,
there's
'cause,
no-
yeah, and it's in that moment where it's like, oh, okay, I failed. Bring honor to my legacy sort of thing. And let it happen. Also, the ships, the fire ships, brought them down. Moving on to your next point now.
the fire ships came to put out the fire. They didn't guide them in any way that I saw. did
There
they?
is one little transmission that says we'll guide you in.
Well, we'll guide you, but they don't, like, nudge it into any specific
Yeah.
direction. Like, we never see them alter the course of their landing in the slightest.
Tractor beams.
And even if they did, the convenient capital ship-sized landing strip in the middle of Coruscant is still convenient.
In a society where ships take off vertically instead of having to
Yes.
land
Instead of,
why
yeah,
there's an airfield.
yeah, exactly.
This
an
this
airfield.
entire planet is literally covered in city, but hey, there's a convenient landing strip here. That's handy. Yeah. And then we catch a ride back to, I'm not sure if it's like the Senate chambers or what it is,
Yeah.
where Padme is waiting, hiding behind a pillar, and Anakin goes running over to her. They hug and they kiss. These two are about as secretive as the Kardashians, but nobody knows what's going on here.
I have long wondered about that because you have one of, if not the most prominent senator in the Senate. You know, she's constantly speaking out and vocal against the war and against Palpatine and all this stuff. And you have, again, one of, if not the most headline of the news Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world are there not 40,000 paparazzi around them anytime they're on Coruscant?
So, this is Senate chamber. Even us, we
So?
only let media in certain situations. Maybe they've just kind of blanket
it's-
outlawed.
He
Almost
literally
always.
just walked away from Obi-Wan and all the others. Like,
And if I
they're
remember
just
right,
further down the hall.
if I remember right, you can see people in the background as they're
Yes, you
talking
can.
to each other. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and those are other senators and Jedi. Senators notoriously gossipy throughout every iteration of canon that ever has been. And Jedi, I mean, like to keep an eye on their own. It's literally like, really? Not a one of you sees this. I mean, those pillars are big, yeah, but like, the Senate building is also pretty big. It's going to be a while before you're like around the curve, and you're not that far. And again, like, no paparazzi at all. None of them. Not one paparazzi there to report on
Not
how the
one
battle that
senator's
is currently
aide,
going
not
above
one
you.
senator, not one guard, not one police officer.
And again, it's like, yeah, I can understand, like, you know, maybe there's some secret council that they don't let the media in, but the Senate is meeting in the middle of the siege of your home planet, like of the capital planet. The Battle of Coruscant is ongoing. You don't think the media is going to be there to be like, Chancellor Palpatine, what do you have to say? You've just been rescued.
Well, and especially when
You
I
know?
put this in the framework of the novelization of Episode 3, where it discusses Anakin and Obi-Wan and how famous, like, he literally has one of the most well-known faces in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, these two men are famous.
you
they
have
are
like,
legends,
yeah,
living
you have
legends.
Obi-Wan and Anakin, who literally, they are the Jedi poster children of the Grand Army of the Republic. And then outside of them, for Jedi, you've got Master Yoda and Mace Windu that are like the other two faces of the Jedi. And then again, as far as the Senate goes,
We got the only
you
member
have
of his species and
literally-
the only member of his race.
yeah, exactly. And as far as the senators go, it's literally on the side of, like, the good guys, it's Padme and Bail Organa.
Yeah.
Those are your poster children for the let's have some diplomacy.
And all of them are present in this scene.
Yeah. and so, yeah, you're telling me not one secret paparazzi is... and again, let's not underestimate the depravity of actual paparazzi, right? Yep. Even if there was a ban, don't tell me somebody's not trying to fly their own drone in there to get some picture.
Apparently,
you know what I mean?
Apparently they were just too busy trying to get an upskirt shot of Padme that they didn't
reals.
notice who she was with or who she
you
was
don't
with.
think paparazzi are going to spy on Anakin and Padme on Naboo in episode 2
even
spread
assuming,
rumors of what's going on? Like, where's the Weekly World News
even
of
assuming
the Star Wars
that
universe?
part of Palpatine's emergency powers was just eliminating the paparazzi?
Yeah, even so.
Because nothing wrong with controlling the media there.
Yeah, for
which
real,
he obviously
which he does.
So
Yeah.
even assuming all that, they're not
Come
being
on.
secretive.
Yeah.
Like, someone has got to notice at some point.
Because they're literally they're right over there. It's like spit a loogie and you could hit the other senators and Jedi that are right there.
Yep.
And you're hugging and kissing. And Anakin is visibly excited when she's like, I'm pregnant, by the way. He puts his hands on her belly, all excited, more hugging. And none of you
It's great
notice
because
this?
he picks her up and spins her around like they're holding each other and everything, and then he goes to kiss her and she's like, no, not here. And it's like, not here? What? I'm sorry, what line? What is the line here? Hand holding okay here? Is that too
so
much?
funny because it's like, Obi-Wan, you're bad at your job. You're a terrible trainer. For reals.
Yeah. All right. So then after this point in the movie, there's a whole lot of just meandering around Coruscant for a while. And honestly, I was just too bored to try and think through all of it. So we're going to jump to Utapau.
Yeah.
Um,
Where Obi-Wan again sneaks through shafts. And
so
conveniently
Obi-Wan
hears
is
things.
explicitly being watched on Utapau. He lands on
that's
Utapau.
true. Yeah.
Dude comes up and says, we're being watched. But he manages to not only stealth away and no one noticed that he stayed behind, but also fake flying off planet despite the fact that the canopy of his ship is completely clear. Like,
He used
Wow.
force stealth.
yeah. Apparently Obi-Wan learned the force projection way long ago, and that's how he faked
I
leaving.
What
like
he
that.
does is he uses the Force and floats an extra cloak back into the ship.
He actually just got 3 children to sit on each other's shoulders in his cockpit while wearing one of his cloaks.
He recruits some of the Powans, the little ones, the ones that are
The
actually
Ugnaughts.
refueling the ship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wait,
No,
the
not
Uti,
Ugnaughts.
which ones are the short ones?
No, you're right. Because there's like the Uta and the Powans. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Whichever ones the short ones are.
So, then not only is Obi-Wan this stealthy, but the loud lizard bird has the stealth skill and is pre-trained to use it because he rides that right into the heart of Grievous's
Which,
endeavors.
again, how big that animal is. You think you would hear...
Yep. What it makes me think of is stealthing on a Karagor in Shadow of Mordor, where it's just like this, I created this thing and I'm dominating it, basically is why I can control it, but it's like, maybe that's what Obi-Wan's doing here with the Force, somehow, because that thing is really well trained. It comes at a whistle later.
Yeah.
And he's literally met this thing today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all pretty handy. Pretty convenient. Okay, jumping back to Coruscant, Mace conveniently notifies no one of Palpatine's true identity, save for the 3 dudes he brings along.
For reals, you think you'd have been like, let me just hop on the mass text real quick. I'm going to send
Yeah.
out a mass email. Dear all the Jedi,
Dear all the Jedi, dear all law enforcement agencies, everybody, everywhere.
Palpatine is... And this reminds me of another meme where it's kind of like... Where, again, it's one of the cut to credits, where he's like, Master Windu, but it cuts off before that, and it's Mace Windu, like, the entire Jedi Council. There's like 15, 16 Jedi in there, and it's like... Yeah, that's... Again, it's like, if this is the Sith Lord, you're that confident that 4 of you can take this dude on when he's clearly manipulated everything and you realize
Well,
this? I would have been like,
as,
cool,
who was
everyone
it?
except the younglings in the temple, come with me right now. Like, we're all going.
When we had that meme in the group a little while ago, though, we had it, was it Alan Smith? I can't remember who it was, commented on that meme. Sorry if you're listening to this. I don't remember your name.
He's not, unless I harass him. Dang Malta.
Anyway, he commented on there with a very long thing, which he was like, okay, here we go. And I was like, oh boy, this will be fun. And and he outlines how these three, along with Mace Windu, are explicitly detailed as very skilled swordsmen.
Sure.
So it's like, yeah, I could buy that.
But when it comes to a Sith Lord, it's like there's no such thing as overkill, man. I would have been like,
maybe. I mean,
we four can handle this. But in case things look rough, I want the 20 of you to jump in.
Maybe, but I mean, the last Sith Lord to die got taken down by that little tweeb Anakin. And the one before that got taken out mid-stroke by a Padawan. Like, I mean...
Yeah.
I don't know if we really need to...
That's fair.
But the fact that he tells no one, like, the fact that nobody knows about this, that he's going to do this, any of that... I mean, because he doesn't seem to arrive at the conclusion of we just have to kill him until mid-fight.
Yeah, his intention is to
So it doesn't seem like... Yeah, it doesn't
trial.
seem like he went in here going, well, I better keep this on the down low just in case I decide to commit murder instead. Like, that does not seem to be his plan. But then these three dudes that are apparently canonically supposed to be great swordsmen are all conveniently useless.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty handy. They all die rapidly.
Yeah, which is it's so disappointing because you expect this awesome 5-way fight, and it's boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Okay, now it's a 2-way fight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially Kit Fisto. Like, I wanted to see some cool Kit, because he's such a cool-looking Jedi, and...
Yep.
And we only met him briefly in episode 2.
And those tentacles must be fun.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Oh, none of our listeners know.
Yep.
Sadly.
Anyway.
Not yet, anyway.
So then, pretty convenient that mid-battle, Mace does decide, yeah, you know what? Murder is the best option here. And because, Anakin's whole fall to the dark side probably doesn't work that well. Like, if Anakin shows up there and Mace Windu's like, oh, good, help me arrest him, then Palpatine's sitting there like, oh, crap.
Well,
it's like, no, he's trying to kill me. It's like, no, literally, let's just arrest him. And Anakin like, but I need him. It's like, that's cool. You can interrogate him later. Okay, cool. All right. Because, I mean, Anakin was clearly against Palpatine enough to go expose him to Mace Windu in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, and even at that moment, he was still like, hey, no, we should take him in.
Yeah.
But I also think about, this might be a little bit apples to oranges, but Osama bin Laden. And it wasn't also Saddam Hussein when they were found. Didn't the soldiers on the missions kill them right there?
Well, but it's a little bit different because the plan right off the bat. Well, Saddam was supposed to be captured. that was the plan. He wasn't supposed to be killed by the soldiers. Saddam was actually captured and put on trial. And
he was.
Iraqis tried him and everything.
How did I miss that?
Osama bin Laden, though, that was from the get-go. We found you. You're not getting away again. This is a go in and kill him. He doesn't leave alive situation.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what happens. They go in, they kill him.
Well, and I'm not saying that I can't see Mace Windu making that decision in that circumstance. It's more of just, well, it's pretty handy for Palpatine that Mace Windu did make that decision at that point, despite it being completely contrary to most everything the Jedi Order stands for. That's pretty handy. He basically made him... I mean, it's not entirely emotional. There's a logic to it, and he expounds that logic. Like, he's too dangerous to be left alive.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Pretty logical, but still. It is handy for Palpatine that Mace makes that decision. This one's a little one for me. I just found it funny. It's pretty handy that no clones whatsoever question these orders from a mysterious croaking, disfigured creeper that calls them out of the blue. Like, it's a small thing. I don't know how they're programmed or how that works, but it's like, he's not really recognizable as the Supreme Chancellor at this point. The news of his disfigurement and everything has not gone out yet. This is literally moments after that. He is up on his feet again just fine and just looking kind of shady. And he calls up the clones and they're just... And no one goes, who are you?
Yep.
That's pretty handy.
And again, small thing. My thought was, oh, this must be the Emperor's private channel.
That's exactly what...
Could be.
Yeah.
But it just a small convenience for me. Also, the entire play out of Order 66, I find pretty convenient. Like, we've spent movies after movies setting up what bad A's all these Jedi are, only for them all to be gunned down by regular troops. Which, I mean, they're caught off guard, there's all sorts of justifications, but it is still kind of like, really? That's all? Like, after Qui-Gon's, it'll be fine moment, and living up to it constantly...
Well, and we've also already established that Jedi are hard to surprise. I mean, it can happen.
Yeah.
But they usually recover pretty well, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one does in Order 66.
Pretty convenient that Bale happens to visit the temple and decide that the clothes are lying. Because, like, he shows up, there's a bunch of troops there, and they're just like, there's a rebellion, and he's like, all right. And then he sees a Jedi attack and try and murder these clones, as far as he knows, unprovoked. And they shoot down this Jedi Padawan, and he goes, yep, I know who's the bad guy here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can buy him making that, but it's pretty handy that he happens to arrive there, happens to jump over to the right side there. That's handy. Then back on Utapau, we get the no one could have survived that fall cliche, which is always handy when people just assume that. Also, he survived that fall cliche, which is pretty handy.
Just once it'd be great for them to be like, nobody could survive that fall, and then you see like the broken body at the bottom, and they actually are
that
dead
could be fun.
Because nobody could survive it.
And especially he falls headfirst into that water. Like, it is not a gentle landing.
Yeah.
Apparently, water on Utapau does not have surface tension.
Maybe it's not actually like H2O. Maybe it's some other liquid.
Maybe
so
that's non-corrosive.
Surface tension
thankfully.
isn't what it used to be.
Apparently, so here's this bullet point. Apparently, when I build an Obi-Wan D&D class, he'll have to have maxed out stealth skills because the dude sneaks right off of Utapau and then onto Coruscant and into the freaking Jedi Temple with apparent ease. Like, that pretty says, and it's not like he's being subtle. He's walking around in a Jedi cloak and outfit, wearing a lightsaber on his hip and often wielding that lightsaber. Like, there's nothing subtle about any of this.
They don't exactly sneak in.
But that's just as bad. Like,
I know.
They fight their way into the Jedi Temple and no one goes, hey, pull in the entire army. Like,
yeah. The fact that not one clone is like, Master Yoda and Obi-Wan are here. Please send all the reinforcements.
Mm-hmm. And getting them there, pretty convenient that Bail intercepted Obi-Wan and Yoda at all. Like,
well, intercepted Yoda, yes, but with
he intercepts Obi-Wan too. He explicitly, Obi-Wan sends out an emergency channel thing, and Bail's like, "Oh, hey, come here to me."
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is at that point, Bail is monitoring those frequencies after he's
sure.
Yoda.
I'm sure he's not the only one either.
Yeah,
like pretty handy that he just so happens to get the only two surviving Jedi we currently know about.
Yeah, as opposed to the Emperor.
It's not that Yoda and Obi-Wan each find someone who will give them help because they trust the Jedi or something. They both find the exact same man.
Yeah.
It's pretty handy. So then, apparently we just left all these recordings lying about. Good thing no one sent those to the media after discovering them. I mean, seriously, Obi-Wan, Yoda, like...
dropping the ball.
And this is more the unrealistic in that, like, really? Palpatine just left those there. Palpatine's not concerned at all about someone finding evidence of his crimes and or Anakin's crimes and exposing them to the galaxy at large? That seems unlikely to me. So Obi-Wan sneaks right off of Utapau onto Coruscant into the freaking Jedi Temple with Pyrenees. Yoda, meanwhile, walks straight into the freaking Emperor's office without any trouble whatsoever
through
along
the main
way.
door.
Through the main door, just walks right in. Nobody stops him at any point, despite him being pretty dang recognizable.
Yeah. Possibly the most recognizable Jedi.
Yeah. So then Padme, meanwhile, Obi-Wan comes and tells her everything, and she just runs straight to Anakin. Which for comparison, like, as far as travel time, we'll assume the travel time is not too horrendous. We're sitting here in the area of Provo, Utah. So we'll say this is kind of like, Ross, Carrie is down in Las Vegas. When somebody comes to you and is like, well, Carrie's gone on a mass murder spree. Mm-hmm. She's been killing kids down there. She's been killing kids, but we don't know where she's at. And you're like, oh, crap. Instead of calling her on her cell phone, I'm going to drive down to Vegas right now. While being pregnant.
Yeah.
Which is a little unlikely for you. Maybe we should flip that scenario to you being the mass murderer. But,
of the two of them, though, I could see Carrie being a mass murderer first.
No.
Carrie's more like me, Ross, than you are.
But not in that way.
I'm with Ross here.
Chris knows.
But yeah, just handy that she takes him right there. I would love an alternate version where Obi-Wan hops in that closet and
nothing happened.
That's that.
Oh,
couple hours later, she's
still haven't taken off.
Anakin arrives home and Padme's like, Obi-Wan said this, and he's just like, oh no, that's all I sent some presents. Right through the closet. So then The final lightsaber duel was just littered with lots of nice little improbabilities, all sorts of...
Yeah.
It's like we conveniently smashed these controls, which conveniently allows the lava up here, which conveniently drops this
swinging
arm
around
that we,
without cutting either your or your opponent's rope,
Yep.
is...
All the jumps and the finding things to land on in the midst of a lava stream
It
and all
looks
of that.
fetching
Oh,
cool.
it's a blast. It's fun.
But yeah, improbable left and right.
Yes. Constant improbabilities. And then the convenience of Anakin surviving long enough for Palpatine to come save him. Pretty handy. Pretty improbable. As far as my knowledge of burn victims goes, that seems unlikely.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I got before I zoned out. Anything else you want to
No,
end there?
that's pretty much the end of it.
That's far more than I could think of, except for...
Ooh!
I mean, do I need to go over it again? The Sidious is Anakin's father.
No.
That's-
Don't go there.
That's really not...
It's
like,
not...
I mean, it is an implausibility that these two people just happen to be connected. Yeah, sure.
But even still, if it is true, then the Jedi just happened to land on the right planet to pick up the chosen one.
Yeah, but I did address
know, I
that
mean,
at the
it's-
beginning.
I would say this is an improbability. That when Palpatine calls for that final vote to make the Empire, it's like, really? There's not enough of you on sort of the good side? Because it's like, okay, Bale cast his vote against it, for sure. But it's like, really?
Well, even if
Enough
you're not
of
like
you who
adamantly, like you're not one of the good guys, but you're still just like, whoa, I'm not a favor of.
Well, and not even that, but to buy Palpatine's story, it's like, hold on. So the Jedi, peacekeepers for 1,000 generations, who, even though I might not like their policies, I even may be a part of the Separatists or whatever. They really tried to overthrow. That doesn't seem.
Where's
I
the
don't know.
evidence?
But I don't remember him really giving it a vote. It was just I've been attacked by the Jedi. We're going to make an empire.
Right, but it still required the...
Did it, though?
Mm-hmm.
Because I always thought it was under
They did vote it. They did vote it
they-
into...
They would have had to vote to make it an empire
Well, I
instead
don't
of
know.
a republic.
He declares the organization of the
Yeah.
Galactic Empire, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
He does there, but I think it's more of the ceremonial, like, and we're gonna make the empire. Okay, now just cast your votes. Let's make this official.
No, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway,
But I do think his dark presence was prevalent enough. Because remember, again, he does the whole hand raise thing and the applause raise as he raises his hand. He's got his fingers in a few pies there.
oh, for sure.
Oh, sure. But that's a big...
But
that's a big body
we're
to
talking
have...
thousands.
There's a lot of
and
pies.
thousands of systems.
Yep.
So anyway, that was
Yeah,
that was
man,
a lot.
that was... Yeah, like I said, I got burned out towards the end there. I was just kind of like, whatever. It's all implausible. Cool. These people have light swords and space magic. It's very implausible.
Oh.
And again, that doesn't make it all any less fun. Like there's still all sorts of fun. Most of it isn't per se bad. There's just a lot of things that when you pause that makes you go, a minute, what?
And again, Star Wars doesn't corner the market on improbabilities in its storytelling. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Nope,
No,
not at all.
Well, I mean, in some of my favorite movies, Avengers, Dark Knight, like they're littered with this stuff. It happens. It happens all the time. Yeah. It's cool. I mean, heck, Anna Karenina, Crime and Punishment, like War and Peace, like it's a staple of any Dickens novel, any Shakespeare. Like, yeah, this is a common thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good.
But that was fun.
Yeah.
And just as always, because the prequels get so much hate, just want to clarify, like, it's still Star Wars. We still like it.
Oh, yeah.
It has these problems, but it's still good.
I still
We're
love
not
the
hating on 'em.
watching clips for this. There were lots of moments where I was like, "Oh God, I never noticed how bad that is." But there were still lots of moments like Qui-Gon where I was like, "Oh, that's a great moment.
Yep.
I like that."
But I think that's it, right? Unless anybody's gone. So
I'm
no.
good. I'm burnt out. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm.
Yeah.
So just be sure to follow us on Twitter at More Civilized. Join the Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast. Go to iTunes. Leave us a review. You can search A More Civilized Podcast and leave us a review. And don't just like click the 5 stars. Like actually write something
Yeah, that
because
could be
that's
handy.
helpful.
You can leave reviews anywhere you want.
Yep.
By the way,
But yeah, iTunes being a large
yes,
platform
particularly
is
handy
helpful.
there.
Yep.
So please go do that if you would.
Yep. This week, our favorite listener, which we officially changing from shoutouts,
Sweet.
our favorite listener of this week goes to Abinadi Ayers. I know it was
Ayers.
explained to me. I've already
Ayers.
forgotten.
Ayers?
Ayers, I
It
believe.
is? Oh,
Sure.
I have no idea. Sorry, I've been.
I'm glad I'm not.
We're too
alone.
white to say your name.
It goes to his Kyler quote that he posted on the Facebook group. I don't remember the context of it.
Neither do I.
But the quote is, "I will stab you in the neck."
Yep. As soon as I saw that, I was like, I don't know what he's referencing, but that is definitely something I would say.
I remember you saying that to Ross. I don't remember what it was over.
Was it to me?
I think it was over
you.
the news, actually.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
No, it was to you. I remember.
Steven, let us know.
Yep.
Because then I also remember making the joke about him incriminating himself on tape. And
Okay. Yeah. So that was our favorite of this week that we all giggled furiously at. So thank you, Abinadai. And if you all would like to speak with me, you can find me on Twitter at Mr_Narstar.
yes, if there's any other topics you would like to hear us cover, something you want really delved into in the Star Wars canon, let us know. We'd love to take a look at doing that.
Lindsay, your episode that you requested ages ago is coming up, I promise.
Yeah, we'll get around to that Nerf nugget I promised you to at some point. But
Yep. There we go. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
I almost forgot our intro. I was like, what are you looking at me for? We're done.
I was waiting for you to tell
yeah.
us whose turn it was. These two are about as secretive as the Kardashians, but nobody knows what's going on here.
But, really,
I had an itch right in the middle of my back.
you have to use one of my lightsabers.
It hit the spot. It has that little, like, nubby thing right there. Like a little belt clip.
I'm gonna have to disinfect it.
I didn't shove it down my shirt or anything. I mean...
I may or may not leave that in. Who knows?
You should put it in the end without the initial context.
Yeah, yeah,
At
for
very
real.
least, yeah.
Do it.
Okay, starting again.
Do it.
Perry. Do you not know that? Ross.
Sorry. Didn't have cable when Fairly Odd Parents was a thing.
No,
so.
it's not Fairly Odd Parents. That's
Phineas and
Phineas
Ferb.
and Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb. Same thing.
You
He's a
disappoint me.
semi-aquatic, egg-laying mammal of action. He's a furry little flatfoot who'll never flinch from a fray. It's our job to let them know things. Stephen has already posted to the group.
That's gonna get cut.
Well, let's just assume that was the case.
Yep.
We
You
go
dog.
from burning bugs as a kid to passionate lovemaking.
Please put that
I want
in at
that
the
quote
end.
in there. I want that quote.